What? It's been a year.
Yeah.
It's been a year.
Yeah. So
what you been up to, man? Give me the updates.
Well, launched a supplement brand. Been pushing that out a bunch. We've got like 4 different supplements out now. I'm now in the process of doing, I mean, this is sort of the tail end of a podcast tour I've been doing. I'm going to be out in New York this weekend, actually doing an affiliate conference for the first time. That's really exciting for like pushing the supplement brand out. I'm going to be in Europe doing 3 affiliate conferences in September, doing the same thing. So it's really exciting.
So are you still like a nomad, or did you like establish like a home base?
Kinda, yeah. I've done a couple of big car rallies this year.
Yeah.
In the last, specifically this year. Twice I've driven from Spain to Italy and back. Did it once with my father, and then I did it once with a bunch of mates. So it was super fun.
And you said where in Spain are you living now?
I split my time between like America and Spain, but I mean, when I'm in Spain, it's Marbella.
How is it there?
Beautiful, bro. It's like California weather. Dubai. Okay, let's describe it correctly. California weather, Dubai dining.
Okay.
Yeah. What's that? Like the women are like Scandinavian and English, like coming in for like the beach weather. So they're all like scantily clad, like white, blue-eyed, blonde-haired women everywhere. Supercars like Dubai everywhere. Like Dubai and Miami, like you got supercars driving around everywhere. The same kind of thing. Like everyone's renting a Lambo, but in Miami you see more Ferraris than you see Lambos. So it's a little bit more. I feel like Ferrari's a little bit classier than a Lambo. For some reason.
I feel like it's probably like more cultural than like Ibiza or like the big tourist spots, right?
Yeah, and it's on land, so it's not like Ibiza. You got to fly to the island.
Yeah,
like but it's also kind of out of the way because like the nearest airport is Malaga, and then it's like a 45-minute drive to get to Marbella. So you have to deliberately go there. You can't like it's not like Miami or Vegas where anyone can fly here from anywhere really. You have to like deliberately get to Marbella, and so there's a lot of money there, lots of money there, lots of fitness influencers there. It's a really healthy culture. Like the gym, one of the best gyms in the world is there. It's called Real Club Padel, and it's like half of it is like actually probably 2/3 of it is like outside in the sun.
Yeah,
it's awesome, and everyone there is jacked, so you feel like a fat bastard. The women have massive tits, massive fake titties, big fake lips, and huge asses.
It sounds like Vegas.
Probably. Yeah. Probably like I haven't been to a Vegas gym, but it's probably like a Vegas gym.
No, I'll take you to a Vegas gym. Shout out to Fit Club. It's the Vegas gyms, bro. If you go in the bathroom, they have like a needle depository, like out in the open.
Oh, for people doing like TRT or whatever.
Yeah, like steroids shot. Like you know how like when you go to the doctors, like they have like the biohazard like container where you put the sharps and the needles. Like they have that in the gym.
Oh my god,
fucking awesome. Fucking awesome. If you want to feel like shit about your physique, go to that gym, man. It's great. Yeah. It's great. But dude, I wanted to talk to you about something, man. I know a lot of people, talk to you about like porn career and stuff like that. I noticed something, where I know it's kind of like a little bit of a pivot in your content where you're kind of talking about like the dangers of guys consuming porn and like what it's kind of like doing to guys' brains, stuff like that. I guess for you, what made you start like covering those topics?
Well, in my defense, I wouldn't say that's a pivot, because if you go back 4 years, I've been saying this for 4 years, don't consume porn. FYI, just saying it in case anyone wants to like call me a fucking grifter or some bullshit. I've been saying.
I just noticed it's more of a focal point.
But lately I've been putting more of a focus on it. Yeah. Absolutely, yeah, that's correct. So, bro, it's just it's self-evident. I think like I drove here to Vegas yesterday from LA.
Yeah.
And as I'm driving in, I'm seeing like OnlyFans billboards and shit. I got like an OnlyFans girl advertising on a fucking billboard.
Yeah.
Okay, this has gotten too normalized.
Right.
And I get it. Like you drive into Vegas, you're going to see like billboards for like, Spearmint Rhino, like strip clubs and cabaret shows and stuff. I get that. It's kind of always been here. I get that's why people come to Vegas. But the idea of someone like putting an OnlyFans ad on a billboard like blew me away.
Yeah.
There's zero, we've taken all the shame out of it.
Right.
Which in a way is kind of, it's kind of interesting because it's kind of made porn lame now.
Yeah.
The porn industry has become so mainstream, it has become gay and boring now.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's everywhere. Everyone, like every like half of the women in America have a goddamn OnlyFans. Well, they're like, no, everyone knows someone who's got one.
Oh, for sure.
Right? So it's become like, so like tired and played out and boring. But that's not the reason why that's just an added bonus. That's not necessarily the reason why I sort of say tell guys don't consume that stuff because it's self-evident that it screws guys up. Like,
yeah.
And this is something I wasn't even really aware of when I was in porn. When I got, it's sort of towards the tail end of my career when I got out of it, like especially when I started coaching guys, loads of dudes would come to me and say, yo, man, I've got a real problem with porn. I'm like, it's like a habit. I'm addicted to it, et cetera, et cetera. They're having, and as a result, they're having problems with, getting it up with their girlfriend or getting up with a girl at all. They have problems with delayed ejaculation. They have massive problems with motivation. Because if you think about it from a psychological perspective, like why do most men get out of bed in the morning? They get out of bed to fuck subconsciously for the pursuit of women. Yeah. Right. You build things, you make money, you network, you achieve success. Like it's all eventually, as an end result, it's basically in the pursuit of a woman and thus, kids and having a, prolonging your genetic lineage, right? That's ultimate. Like whether you're conscious of it or not, that's ultimately the driving
factor. That's behind
factor.
everything. It's evolution.
Exactly. So when you give a guy unlimited access to vagina, like visually, without having to do any effort, all he has to do is type a few things on a keyboard. Yeah. It takes away all of the drive, right, to accomplish anything. And on top of that, like the biochemistry of it is dopamine receptors are getting hammered again and again and again. So as dopamine receptors become less sensitive, it's kind of exactly the same effect as like over consuming sugar does to like a diabetic. Yeah. Like your insulin becomes like, you become insulin resistant. Like you become, your insulin has less of an effect on your body when you're diabetic. And so you can die from consuming like sugar and stuff like that. With porn, it's the same thing. Your dopamine receptors become less sensitive. So you need more and more and more stimulus to achieve the same effect. And dopamine is like the motivation compound in your brain. It's what causes you to go after things and pursue goals and complete goals, right? Right. So when you screw that up, it's no surprise we've got a bunch of dudes sitting around in their mother's, I hate the stereotype, but in their mother's basement playing video games. Yeah. Right. Obviously not everyone's doing exactly that, but the stereotype's there for a reason. There's a lot of disaffected young men who are sedated by it. Yeah. Yeah. And like they don't have any motivation to change or improve themselves or do anything at this point. Yeah. It's kind of weird to me. I maybe Australian culture is a little bit different from American culture, but I hear a lot of stories of guys, in their mid to late 20s still living with their parents. Yeah, that's pretty common. It's pretty common here. Yeah. Right. And it's like not that I have a problem. I don't think that, parents should kick their kids out of the house. I don't get me wrong, I don't think that's actually the case, but I do think paradoxically that as a man, you should be the one to get yourself out of the house. Yeah. It's not like these guys are like staying at home, like, cause they're starting a business or something. It's like, no, it's cause they're just working a 9 to 5, they're sleeping on their couch. Like they're not actually doing anything super productive outside of what they have to do. Completely. Yeah. And I guess, do you think, it's getting too mainstream to the point where like, there's not enough shame about it? Because now it's almost, at least like when I was growing up, because I used to have a problem with porn as well. Like I admit it, I completely had a problem with it. I was exposed to it when I was like 12 or 13. And I think that when I remember growing up that it was almost like encouraged as something that was healthy. It's like masturbation's healthy, consuming porn was healthy, or maybe it wasn't healthy, but it like no one really talks about the bad effects. Like we talk about the bad effects of like heroin or of opiates, stuff like that, but not a lot of people are talking about the negative effects of porn and how bad the addiction can really get. Yeah. I mean, it sort of took us by surprise, I think, because you had, I mean, how old are you again? I'm 24. Yeah. I mean, you're 24, I'm 37, right? So like, I think it was 2001, like early 2000s when like Pornhub came around. Yeah. Like Pornhub, RedTube, like Xvideos, Xhamster, all these big, what we call tube sites in the porn. That's when you see a massive shift in the industry, in its exposure, in its effect on men. You see a massive difference in its effect on like, rates of virginity amongst young men and stuff. Yeah. There's a lot of correlations happening around the same time, right? As porn becomes basically accessible to everybody. Yeah. In infinite variety as well. Prior to that, it was like, okay, you needed to like, you stole your uncle's like dirty magazine that he had stashed under his bed or something. That was that's what you grew up. That's what I grew up on, right? And then when I was a teenager, then the internet happened and you started to get like internet pornography and stuff like that. And even then it was still like primarily based upon subscription sites, and there were still videos and DVDs. You still had to go to like an adult DVD store to get like one. You know what I mean?
You get to put some effort in.
Yeah, there was effort, and there was a barrier to entry.
Yeah,
like an age-restricted barrier to entry.
Well, did that actually matter back then? Well, did it have any effect back then?
I think initially, yeah, I think it did. Especially when it came to like going to like you couldn't go into an adult store if you didn't have an ID of like being 18 or maybe 21 here in this country.
Yeah.
But then like all these free free YouTube-like sites pop up out of nowhere. Well, I don't know, but they pop up all at the same time. And then bang, everyone with an internet connection can now access endless amounts of pornography for free, regardless of their age.
Yeah.
And that's a big Pandora's box we opened up.
100%.
And I think that's it definitely screwed with like the millennial generation, and it 100% screwed with Gen Z.
Got it. And is that why, because I know you coach a lot of guys, anytime they're having problems in the bedroom, is that why you always suggest the first thing they do is cut out porn?
Yeah, I mean, there's multiple reasons for that. Well, there's all the problems we just talked about there, right?
Yeah.
As in like, it's motivation and problems, and it's requiring too much stimulus to achieve an erection or to achieve orgasm.
Yeah.
If we can cut that out to start with, cool, these problems can start to go, back to normal. But it's also a case of like a lot of guys come to me with problems even getting a girlfriend in the first place.
Yeah.
And it's like, even though that's not necessarily my specialty, like a guy like Michael Sartain is way better, teaching guys practically how to actually get like beautiful women.
Yeah.
But I do believe that if you are kind of getting rid of that fire in you every day without doing any effort, without approaching a woman, without talking to a woman, if you're getting rid of that drive, that ain't going to help you. Like you're going to need to build that drive up a little bit. I don't like to use the term like transmutation of sexual energy, but the idea, the principle behind it is pretty solid. Like the idea of like, okay, if you just stop jerking off for a while, if you just stop consuming porn for a while, okay, you're going to get hornier, you're going to have blue balls, you're going to be like,
we're going to figure it out.
Yeah, do something about it, motherfucker. Go do something about it. I remember this is back in my mid-20s, one of my buddies from England, he was what do you call like a foreign exchange, not a foreign exchange student, but like a guy who was on a work visa, come out to Australia, and he crashed on my couch for a few weeks or whatever. And he eventually he hadn't lost his virginity, and he was probably like 23 at the time. And he sort of got to this point where he was like, you know what, I'm going to fix this problem. And this is the smartest thing I've ever seen anyone do. He gave me his laptop charger.
Yeah.
So he had a limited amount of battery time on his laptop, so he couldn't jerk off.
Yeah.
Otherwise he'd do it for a couple of days and he's out. He could barely like contact his family back home. He couldn't like really work or search the internet or do anything at all. So he's like,
That's
okay,
smart.
and he said, don't give me back the charger to my laptop until I've lost my virginity. And I said, cool.
That's awesome.
That's a great
challenge.
Happy to help with this.
Yeah.
And that's a great solution. Because all he did for the next month was go out every single night to bars and hit on women. And within 2.5 weeks, he'd done it.
Yeah, I mean, numbers game at that point.
It was a numbers game, right? Yeah. And a practice, and to be fair, he was quite autistic when I met him. And he lost his virginity. He was still a bit autistic when he lost his virginity, but he helped. Like it helped. I fully believe that because I've seen it personally. Like this guy's a great example of it. I think you can like just program like autistic social awkwardness out of a guy through repetition.
I completely agree.
And I think a lot of guys think that like they think that's impossible, or they think they're doomed because they might be a little bit socially awkward. It's just it's a numbers game. It's a repetition. It's like your brain needs exposure to social cues. And if you're somewhat autistic and socially retarded or whatever already, you're not really going to be putting yourself in that many social situations, especially with women.
Yeah.
So you just need constant repetition and exposure. Your brain needs to see, your brain needs to see examples. It's probably even more important than just the aspect of talking to women yourself.
Yeah.
Your brain needs to see examples of what a man who is successful with women looks like.
Right.
His mannerisms, the way he talks, the way he carries himself, his body language.
Yeah.
The way women respond to him, the way women respond to his jokes, the kind of jokes he tells women, the kind of, the playful jabs, the playful vibes.
Yeah.
Because even though you don't necessarily even need to pay attention to that consciously, but just by being around it enough, your subconscious brain will eventually pick up on it.
Yeah.
And then when you go out and talk to women, it'll start to slowly manifest because your subconscious brain is like, wait a minute, remember that guy? He was acting this way, standing this way, doing these things, saying these things, getting very positive reactions from women. And all of a sudden, your body language will start to like autocorrect. And it's not even a conscious thing. It's like
it's
little,
all in the brain,
tiny
man.
micro expressions will start to autocorrect just because your subconscious brain has been like exposed to a good example of it.
100%. 100%. Random question, actually. Do you follow the Huberman Labs, Andrew Huberman? You ever heard of him?
I love Huberman. Yeah, he's great.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm sure you've seen his videos where he talks about like the dopamine responses and like how porn just like erodes your dopamine receptors. And the other thing is that it conditions you to get aroused by watching other dudes fuck the girl that you want.
Oh,
and
completely.
That's where it gets dangerous.
Completely. I was on this podcast yesterday, and it was like he said the funniest fucking thing. Candy Ken's the guy's name.
Yeah.
And he had the best take on jerking off to porn. If you jerk off to porn, you're a gay cuck because you're a cuck because you're watching another dude get, like fuck a chick.
Yeah, they're watching Sterling. Yeah.
And you're gay because a man, yourself, is touching your dick.
Yeah.
So every time you
so
jerk,
you're double gay.
Every time you jerk it, you're being gay. And if you watch porn, you're a cuck. So if you jerk it to porn, you're a gay cuck.
Yeah.
Simple. So if every guy who wanted to quit porn just reminded himself of that, I think guys would quit porn pretty fast.
Yeah. Dude, I actually wanted to ask you about that. So I've just noticed like this idea because I travel a lot. I see like a lot of different relationships dynamics. I've noticed like a lot of guys who are into the cucking thing, like watching their girl get fucked. Like, do you think, like, to me, evolutionarily, that's not natural. Like that's, and I my question to you is like, do you think because of porn is why more guys are into this? Because that's like evolutionarily, that just doesn't make any fucking sense.
Yeah, I think you'd be very hard pressed to find a guy who had that kind of fantasy who didn't consume an excessive amount of porn.
Yeah.
It's
unless he's like latently gay or something that I can actually see.
Yeah, that would make sense.
That would make sense.
But even then,
that's not that many people.
But even then, I think a lot. I would be shocked if most gay men didn't consume pornography as well.
Yeah, good point.
So I think that like because porn is like okay. Here's a way to look at it. Right, being in an aroused state of mind is actually you're very susceptible to suggestion. It's a hypnotic state.
Yeah.
For men and women, by the way.
Yeah.
So think of it this way. Every time you're consuming porn, you are actually subtly being programmed with whatever you're watching.
Yeah.
And by default, all pornography is cuckoldry because you're watching another dude's dick doing something. So it makes sense to me that people who habitually consume pornography, not everyone obviously, but eventually a lot of guys get to that point where they will sexualize seeing another man with their woman.
Yeah. Because
it's been subconsciously programmed into their brain every time they're jerking it.
Yeah.
Right?
Right. And I mean, obviously in the Red Pill, we get a little conspiratorial with like what's going on. Like you being someone who's actually in the industry.
I love my tinfoil hat.
Oh,
don't take it away.
Yeah, we're putting it on. Do you feel like this is like the industry is almost like a conspiracy to sedate men in a way? Or do you think it's just something that just happens, but you're actually in it? So like, I wonder what.
I'll say like, because there's a difference between like what, a performer like me. And by the way, I want to state first, like pot calling the kettle black here. By the way, like I fully understand the role that I played in this.
Yeah.
And again, that's why it's kind of why I do what I do. I'm trying to make up for the fucking damage I caused, right? So fully admit that I fucked a lot of dudes up by I participated in this for the first, So I think it's important for me to make sure everyone knows that I understand that, right? On like from the performer level and even like the director level, we don't have a say in like what kind of content we're shooting, right?
What do you mean?
As in like we get given a script that day.
Got it.
Like we know what company we're shooting for. We generally know what kind of stuff they shoot, but we basically rock up and we know who we're shooting with, what company we're shooting for, and then we get there on the day we give them the script, or maybe we'll get the script the day before. We're not the ones dictating like the plot lines and the themes of stuff. So when you see lots of like cuckold stuff or like the in fake incest stuff,
like stepbrother and the dryer shit.
All that stuff. Like that's coming from higher up. That's coming from like the people who are paid to write the scripts for the companies, who then all that stuff is then outsourced down the line to a producer, to a director, who then hires us.
So that's already taken care of before you even get on set.
Before we even get booked. It's just like, this is like, before we even get booked, it's like, we want, stepdad, stepdaughter scene shot for blah, blah company. Cool. We outsource to director A, and then he goes and finds the talent to do it. He hits up a manager, like a talent manager. Okay, who you got available for Wednesday? This person, cool, we'll book them. And that's kind of how it works. So on our level, because we don't have any input in it, on that level of the thing, there's not really a conspiracy there. Now, further up the chain, you could definitely get conspiratorial about it, because lots of agendas are being pushed. With that sort of stuff. The fake incest, the faux incest stuff is being normalized. Like, there was a weird trend when I left in like 2020 of them trying to really push the trans stuff, especially on like veteran performers. There were a couple of like veteran,
they wanted you to fuck trans women.
Not me. I was gonna add of that.
Yeah,
but there was a couple of like really veteran dudes who'd shot nothing but straight porn.
Yeah,
for 15 years, and they pushed a couple of them into like doing their first trans scene. And I was like, this is a weird, like, why all of a sudden is this the agenda? Like, what's going on? Why? Like, they hadn't done any of this before, and the directors had never asked them to do this stuff before. But now they're on contract to this company, by the way.
So you kind of have to,
and they're like the company that's contracting them is telling them, hey, you need to, like, you should try this, you should shoot this, you shoot this, like, and there's constantly pressuring them, and they eventually caved and did it. It's like, this is there's obviously some agenda there.
Yeah,
it's not coincidence.
Well, I think there's like two theories about it. It could be like, one, there's an agenda, but two, because obviously, as like you consume porn, then you're gonna want more extreme versions of porn. So
they go down like a degenerate rabbit hole.
So almost like the demand for more extreme porn is there too, right?
That I can see. I totally get that.
Yeah.
It leads people down like more and more like perverse fantasies, right?
Yeah.
Things have to become more extreme or more different or whatever for the dude to like eventually get off. Slight segue, but my friend, he sent me these studies. This is a buddy of mine back in Australia. He sent me these studies on like, I believe it's like the correct terminology is like male sexual fetishes. And it turns out that like fetishes, I think I do. Forgive me if I get the definitions. The definitions between a kink and a fetish, I should know this. They're actually slightly different. But for argument's sake, let's say I'm getting it right. Men develop their like fetishes at like age 5. So for example, if a dude has a foot fetish, here's what has happened, and this is very consistent. Little Timmy was like crawling around on the floor under the kitchen table, and his mum's friend was over, and she's wearing a skirt, and he's playing around with his toys by her feet, and he looks up and gets a glimpse of like her panties. His first like association with female sexuality is intimately tied then to the feet.
Because he sees the feet first.
Yeah, that is how a lot of male kinks fetishes get ingrained, and they're ingrained from a very, very young age. It's not like if a dude has like a leather fetish, a smoking fetish, a foot fetish, this kind of stuff. He didn't really. It's pretty rare, from my understanding, for him to have developed it at like 18 or 20. He developed that. Like that shit was ingrained at a very, very young age, and then as he got into puberty, it sort of manifested into the sexual. But women are very different. Women's kinks and fetishes are very malleable, incredibly malleable, and very malleable
like throughout their entire
their entire life, and malleable based upon the opinions and input of other women. Actually.
Really?
Yeah.
All right, tell me more.
So, like, when you have a situation where women are in a harem, the normalization of the harem is something that they kind of fall into that frame quite easily. Yeah, and whereas previously they wouldn't have been like, oh, I'm not interested in like eating pussy.
Yeah,
and now all of a sudden they're in like a foursome with like 3 chicks eating pussy because it's been sexualized and normalized, but that malleability is very, very common in terms of female sexual psychology. Whereas, like,
I have no problems with that.
You're right.
That's good for all of us.
And I mean, and likewise, like homosexuality is very typically associated with like, I mean, it's going to be a bit controversial, but homosexuality is typically associated with a very early experience of let's be honest, like child abuse from a male.
Mm-hmm.
It's if you are a guy who's been open about this, for example, you know who Milo Yiannopoulos is. I've heard of a couple of other prominent gay men say this, like they were, touched by a man at a young age.
Yeah.
And then surprise, surprise, now they're gay. Like, it's not this, I don't think homosexuality is this like sort of like innate biological thing.
Yeah.
I think just like the foot fetish stuff, like I mentioned a second ago, I think it's kind of, caused by some kind of triggering event at a young age.
Yeah. You know what's interesting about that? Like going back to what we were talking about with the cuck thing, at least living here in Sartain will tell you about this too. Every time we meet a guy who is into like, and this is no judgment, but this is something I see this a lot. Every time we meet a guy who's into like, like the devil's threesomes, or he's into polyamory and shit like that. It's not that he does gay stuff, but every time we ask a guy who participates in that lifestyle, if he has done gay stuff, it's always 100% yes.
Really?
Every single time. I've never seen them not. Maybe in that relationship, they're only fucking that girl. They're fucking that girl with other people. They're fucking other girls, whatever it is. Yeah. But every time we ask them, any person who participates in polyamory or will let or cuckoldry, they've always done gay shit. Something. I've never seen an exception to the rule.
Wow.
I'm not generalizing for anyone watching here, but I'm just saying, this is just what we see.
Yeah.
This is just what we see in the world.
Interesting.
So I guess, from your perspective, I've always I don't feel like enough people talk about this, right? You were in the industry and you're also an escort too. And then you obviously made this pivot into actually, helping men. And a lot of people don't do that, right? A lot of people just kind of stay doing what they're doing. They kind of stay in the matrix. What was, what made you want to start actually helping men improve and helping men become better?
It was a sort of serendipitous combination of a few things. Like I got very jaded with the industry.
Yeah.
I started to realize it was a very man-hating kind of industry.
Really?
Yeah, very man-hating.
Yeah.
There was a couple of guys who got very falsely accused of sexual assault on set. They got proven innocent, but their reputations were still damaged.
Yeah.
And anyone who leaped to their defense also got their reputation destroyed.
Right.
So it's kind of a very cancel culture. Very cancel heavy culture in that industry that I didn't like. I'm a big pro free speech guy. I'm quite right wing, ironically. So that kind of led me away from it. And at the same time, I sort of saw a gap. I was like, you know what? I know all this stuff. I also have a background in chemistry. I understand biochemistry. I understand nutrition. I understand these things.
Yeah.
I'm a published scientific author. Actually, I can read and dissect a journal article. I know how to do that. And so I sort of saw a lane. I was like, you know what? I can actually there's a bunch of advice I know that the average guy doesn't know. I can actually start helping people with this. So I sort of put it out there, started to see how it went. Actually started by reaching out to Rollo Tomasi, went on his show, and the response was really positive. And as obviously, prior to that, I'd had guys in my DM asking me one-on-one questions as a performer, hey, how do I get my dick hard? How do I last longer? How do I do this? How do I do that? And I would give my advice here and there. And it's sort of once you see that you can help a bunch of people, it's a really nice feeling. It's good to be able to help. It's nice to be able to help people.
Yeah.
And every aspect of my life improved the moment I made that switch to towards helping guys.
Yeah.
Everything. My conscience was clear. I felt I wasn't I didn't have to hide my opinions about anything anymore. I could speak freely. I could, I was healthier. I was making more money. Everything was better. I was networking with people I liked. Make great connections. And it was this was evidently the correct path to take. And yeah, it was just a case of I felt good being able to help guys.
That's awesome.
So
that's awesome. Man, how did you
and I kind of, to slightly add to that, I kind of always prior to getting into porn and stuff, I had a healthy meal delivery business. And I always looked at business as a problem solving thing. You will get paid more if you solve a small problem for a lot of people, or you solve a really complex problem for a select group of people, right?
Yeah.
Your people exchange money for solving problems, basically. People exchange money for solving their problems, saving them money, making them money, saving them time, saving them energy, basically all these things, aka solving a problem. So I always looked at business that way, and I thought, there's a whole bunch of problems here that I can solve for the average guy. So why not?
So right now, like, what is like what's the main metrics through which you help guys? Is it through like you coach guys? Do you just have the supplement line? Like, what's kind of like what your
we got a supplement line, and I also have like a series of information products, so books and video courses that cater to very, very specific problems for guys.
Yeah,
I don't have the time to do like one-on-one coaching for all these guys.
Yeah,
I will. I hopefully by the end of this year, I will be launching like a kind of like a group coaching situation, so I can take on a little bit more one-on-one stuff, but it'll be I'll have to make it a little bit more exclusive for my time, obviously, but. That's that, and then I just put out lots of free resources on YouTube, basically.
Yeah,
like I've got hundreds of videos on YouTube covering every possible problem a dude could have.
100%,
and it's just like you don't have to pay me anything. You could just go there and search for free if you wanted to.
Right,
but a lot of guys end up paying me anyway because it's a reciprocity thing.
Yeah,
like if I've helped a guy with a free video, I'm definitely going to be able to help him with my paid stuff. So guys kind of understand that.
100%. Like the more you put out in the world, the more you're going to get back, right?
Completely.
So I totally get that. And how did you get hooked up with? Because the way I know you is through Michael and Justin. So how did you get hooked up with them?
Justin, I met. Michael, I got connected to through Rollo.
Rollo, yeah.
Rollo, I got connected to. I cold email pitched Rollo.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm quite good at cold pitching people.
Yeah,
I'm going to be honest. Okay. Stop laughing at. Justin, I actually met Justin the same night I met Andrew and Tristan Tate. Andrew and Tristan, I met them through Twitter, and they invited me actually to an event here in Las Vegas that they were putting on. It was like a cocktail thing that they had at the end of an event. They invited me out, went out there, hung out, met them, and I met Justin the same night. And then me and Justin connected. I drove. Actually, I moved from LA to Miami, and I drove across America.
Really?
Yeah, because I just thought it'd be a cool thing to do.
That's awesome.
So I drove all the way. I made it to Louisiana, and because I'd met Justin in LA, he told me he was living in Baton Rouge at the time. So hung out.
What year was this?
It was 2021.
Okay, got it. Right, so this is really before they all started taking off.
Yeah, basically, yeah. This was like early 2021. Me and Justin hit it off. My car actually broke down in Baton Rouge then as well. So I had to fly.
And he was still living in Louisiana?
He was still living in Louisiana, so I had to fly to Miami. I ended up getting an apartment in Miami, and then Justin he crashed with me a couple of times when he was passing through Miami for like events and things. And he ended up just moving in with me. Right. He sort of invited himself. Which is kind of funny, but I ain't got a problem that he did it. It was great. But it was at the time.
Were you guys like roommates, just neighbors? Like what was
we ended up becoming roommates. Yeah. That's
awesome. Was it his I'm not gonna I'll cut it out of the podcast, but was it his place in the Hyde? Or this was before that?
No, we started in another place in Midtown.
Yeah.
I had it and he moved in with me because it was 2-bedroom.
Yeah.
And then the two of us moved to Hyde.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Got it. You still have your place there or no?
He still has that place, yeah.
Oh, okay. Because I know Michael crashes there all the time.
Yeah, Michael crashes in my old bedroom.
Okay, got it. That's dope, man. That's dope. That's great, man. So I guess for you, I think a lot of guys, and I think I see this a little bit more with your content, right? I know you obviously help guys with sex issues, but I think a big problem for a lot of guys because they've been sedated with porn so much is that they can't get laid to begin with.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's like honestly the biggest problem. So I guess what do you think is the biggest thing? Because something I've learned from your content, right? Like this with women, the seduction doesn't just start with the sex. It's the whole process.
Seduction starts long before sex.
Right? That's the biggest thing I learned watching your stuff over the years. And I guess my question is, what do you think is the biggest thing guys are missing to actually help them get laid in the first place?
They have a fundamental misunderstanding of like how to arouse a woman.
Yeah. You mean with like their words, their foreplay,
everything. I like the term fully clothed foreplay. Because it starts when you're fully clothed it starts before you even say a word.
Right.
And I personally the way I always used to get girlfriends, get women and stuff like this. I would always I would usually, match them through a dating app or Instagram, and then I'd get them on a date. I'm very, very good on a first date. Very, very good. And ladies should beware of a man who's extremely good on a first date.
Yeah.
Because he's done it a lot. But basically, like I felt like I mastered the science of being sexual on a first date and eliciting an arousal response from a woman on a first date. That would well, for first of all, make sure the guy is not in the friend zone. Like if you're being very sexual and arousing to a woman, you're being very polarizing. You're completely cutting yourself out of the possibility of being in a friend zone. Mm-hmm. It's either this is going in a sexual direction or this is stopping right here.
Yeah.
Right. You're separating yourself. You're categorizing yourself very quickly into the guy who fucks category.
Yeah.
Right. You're not the timid, intimidated, shy, nervous guy.
Yeah.
Right?
I think a lot of guys are afraid of being categorized as like the player. And they think because women say, they're not interested in players. We both know you and I just have some experience knowing that that's not true at all.
Yeah, there's it's kind of funny that you say that because I've never thought that. But I get
a lot of guys say that to us.
Yeah, I get that. Like,
I hear it a lot.
Yeah.
Especially because they're listening to a lot of the things women tell them versus paying attention to what women actually respond to.
They're actually responding to. Yeah. And that makes sense because it's part of like the shaming tactics that are used on guys. Like guilt and shame is used to like belittle and effeminize men.
Yeah.
To stop them from pursuing, things that would be in their best interests, basically.
Right.
If we guilt and shame the average guy enough, he's not going to like. This is kind of, it's maybe not deliberately conscious, but this is like kind of subconsciously what's going on in a lot of women's minds. Is like if I belittle and shame that guy and he accepts it, I'm good. Then I just filtered that guy out from like mating with because it means he can
it's like a giant shit test.
Yeah, he can be easily controlled. He can be easily manipulated. If I can easily manipulate him, that means any woman can easily manipulate him. The dude can probably easily manipulate him. He's useless to me. He's not strong. He can't protect me. He can't provide for me. Mm-hmm. Cool. You just failed that shit test completely.
Yeah.
But the idea of sort of sexualizing your interaction with women from a very like from kind of the get-go stops you from falling in the friend zone. Sets I think setting the tone for the relationship from the start is a good thing. If you set the tone from the relationship at the beginning of like you're a sexual guy, you elicit a arousal response in her. Cool. Moving forward, you're not going to really have any problems with like a dead bedroom.
Yeah,
because it's not a frame of like the guy negotiating for sex. It's not a frame of the guy like trying to get sex out of the woman. It's a frame of she wants sex from you more than you want it from her.
Yeah.
Because you've elicited that out of her. You've aroused her to the point where she is just gagging for it.
Yeah.
And so I think guys, and I like if I was going to break it down into what actually works, let's say get the guy gets on a date with a woman.
Let's say he's autistic. What is the things he has to do? Yeah. If he was autistic, what would you have? What's
the step by step, right? To get to like, okay, you're on a date with a girl to you can take her home and have sex.
Yeah.
If assuming all the stars line up and everything goes right. First of all is logistics. Understanding logistics. I learned this in my 20s, man. Like, because I was the guy hitting up clubs like every day of the week.
Yeah.
Clubs and bars every day, hitting on girls, trying to get laid and stuff. I tried learning this skill set. And it took me like probably 6 months to a year. I probably did it like hardcore for like 2.5 years.
Yeah.
It took me like 6 months to a year before I realized, wait a minute, if I just get my success is always like contingent on my logistics. When my logistics are like smooth as hell, I get laid more.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh fuck, like 80% of getting laid is just good logistics.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Like, and what do I mean by logistics? Okay, like as a practical example, how close is the date location to your house? Or to a reasonable sex location. Like you don't.
How close is the club to your bedroom?
Yes,
it's a big one.
Yeah, you don't want to rely on the sex happening at her place because that's kind of an invasion of her privacy. Women aren't really trusting of dudes coming into their space. It kind of makes her feel a bit threatened. She could have housemates or whatever. So there's even more logistical
plausible deniability.
There's no plausible deniability at your place. There's plausible deniability.
Right.
That's another big thing. We'll get into that too.
Yeah.
So how close is that? So in terms of logistics, there's that. There's the setting up plausible deniability,
right?
And plausible deniability is like basically just giving an excuse that isn't sex to be in the sex location, right? So come look at let's look at the stars through the telescope on my balcony, like some stupid shit, whatever. It doesn't even matter what it is. Yeah. But it's literally it's plausible deniability. Because she can backwards rationalize to herself or to her friends why she was in your apartment. Right. Simple as that. Then we have obviously getting to and from, like you don't want to be if you drive and then you're shit faced and you can't drive anywhere else. Okay, well that's bad logistics, right? Little subtle things like this. Another real subtle thing I personally really love is like if we're on a date, I don't sit like we're sitting right now across from each other. Yeah, I sit next to her. Yeah, specifically. Well, one because it doesn't feel like an interview, which is intimidating, like body language wise. Yeah, I'm so intimidated by you right now. Two. It allows subtle shit. Like I can rest my thigh against her thigh. Right. And this starts the next process, which is like physical escalation. When the first thing I do when I meet a girl on a date is like I kiss her on the cheeks. Boom, boom. I picked that up when I was in like Argentina. I get Argentinians like just fucking kiss everybody on the cheeks. Kiss dudes on it. The dudes kiss dudes on the cheeks. Really? Yeah. Like everyone just kisses each other on the cheek. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. But I also noticed that like Latin American culture is very sexual. As well, 100%. I'm like, there's probably a correlation here between like how physical they are and like how much they fuck. Yeah, you know. Whereas we're a bit more prudish and reserved in the West, I think. So I always set up like I'll like hand on the lower back, lean in, kiss on both cheeks. So I'm starting off with something physical. Yeah, I'm not like leaning in for a handshake like a dork to meet this woman, right? And then a lot of guys do that, bro. Yeah, and so I'm not like, but what does that tell? Not only am I starting the physical escalation there, like I'm breaking that ice basically, I'm also demonstrating to her that I'm not afraid of touching her. Yeah, I'm not intimidated and scared and shy about the idea of touching a woman. I'm comfortable with it, which makes her feel comfortable with it. Yeah, and that also gives like a little bit of pre-selection too, that totally you've been there before. Completely. Yeah, a lot of the psychology of what we're talking about just boils down to pre-selection. It just boils down, even being good in bed. Yeah, boils down to why is that so attractive to women? Like you being really fucking good in bed. It's because she knows you fucked other women. Yeah, it's pre-selection. All of it, a lot of this stuff just boils down to the fact that other women have found you attractive in the past. Yeah, right. That's why your stuff and Michael's stuff works so fucking well. Right. Yeah. So we've got we're initiating some kind of physical contact by just touching her on the leg, being next to her. Cool. And then and what that does as well is that you'll notice that it supercharges anything you're talking about. It makes any conversation somewhat flirtatious and sexual. If there's even without an accent, even without the accent, okay. Even without a sexy motherfucking Australian accent, okay, you'll still make the conversation sexually charged. You could be talking about the weather, but if your legs are touching, there's still both of you won't know what it is. It's subconscious. Both of you will still feel a little butterflies. Yeah, because you're touching. Yeah, and it's so subtle. You can get away with it. That's the beauty of it too. To her, it's I like the phrase serendipity engineering. To her, it just feels like it was meant to be. It just feels magical. The thing, you're doing all this stuff consciously, deliberately. Yeah. Right? And you have to. But to her, it's like she manifested it, or it was fate, or like the world came together. But in reality, you're engineering that feeling. Yes. The same way you're engineering the logistics in your favor. Yeah. To lead to a romantic encounter. Yeah. And if you explained this to like a normie, they would be I guarantee the instant words out of their mouth would be like, that's manipulation. That's taking advantage of a woman. They would literally say shit like this. Okay, bro, like you try getting this is my method. What is your method, Mr. Internet troll loser male feminist? Yeah. How do you create chemistry with a woman? Yeah. Is it by wearing a pussy hat and going to marches with them? That's probably what you try to do. Right. And then you're the one who actually sexually assaults women when they're drunk on a couch at a house party. 100%. You know? I actually think the nice guys are the male feminists. I think they're the most manipulative because they're the most dishonest. Yeah. Yeah, they're lying about their true intentions to get your pants. At least if I say to a woman, like, we would make great kids together, like, I'm being fucking direct and honest. Yeah. That's more respectable. It's more respectable. Women respect it. Yeah. Because you got balls. You're actually not afraid to say what you fucking want. Yeah. And that's another thing I'll throw in there in terms of like, again, we're like, breaking stuff down for like the autistic guy, right? Yeah. A statement of intent. I'm a big fan of statement of intents. I know some people aren't, but in a flirtatious way like that, like, like God damn, we would make some good looking kids. Like it's just like, what is the implication of the implication of that statement is we're gonna fuck.
Yeah.
Right. But it's done in a funny way. It's done in a flirtatious way. It's done in a kind of a cocky way too, because I'm saying we're both good looking. Another way of saying I'm engaged now, so I don't have to do all this stuff anymore.
Yeah.
It's fun though. But one thing I remember, one line I used to say is like, how did I phrase it exactly? It was like, man, our kids would be so amazing. They would have my good looks, my intelligence, my charisma, you just keep listing shit about yourself. You don't list anything about it. And then eventually they get it and they slap you. It's great.
I can't wait for some simp to react to this calling you a narcissist or some shit like that.
Well, I am a bit narcissistic, to be honest. but I'm a charming narcissist. So that's the difference. Yeah. So like, yes, I like, good logistics, like comfortably initiating physical contact, statements of intent, and then those are like kind of like the core building blocks of like, I think like a good date and setting yourself up to win. Yeah. Right. And then the rest that kind of falls on you. And this is where a lot of guys who are inexperienced and new to this will struggle, is keeping the conversation going. Right. One, don't be afraid of silence. Like being comfortable in having that awkward silence, not feeling awkward in the awkward silence, is a superpower.
Silence is awkward if you make it awkward.
Bingo. Yeah, completely. Yeah. So if you can like be relaxed into it, you need to have that silence every now and then for a couple of reasons. One, so you can gauge how interested she is, because if a woman is really into you, she will fill that gap in the silence.
Yeah.
And two, you give her an opportunity to ask you questions or invest in the conversation a bit as well, because she has to invest somewhat. Otherwise, you're just like a dancing monkey chasing her the whole time. Right. So you need that gap. You need to fill that gap for her, or you need for her to fill that gap a little bit.
Yeah. I think what I see a lot of guys, because I'm around. Obviously, I've had to get on the privilege to be around you, Michael, Justin. So I obviously learn a lot more than the average 24-year-old. So when I'm around like guys, I'm in college right now. When I'm around guys in college, they oftentimes talk way too much. Like they qualify themselves. They talk about themselves. And I think the key is just get her to talk about herself as much as possible.
I think there's a way to talk about yourself without it coming across like you're qualifying.
Yeah.
And I think and for me,
I think the key is like get her to ask about you, not you just give it to her right away.
Yeah. Yeah. I think storytelling is a good part of that. If you can learn to tell stories well, you can. Because it's a plausible way for you to talk about yourself, like to talk about positive, attractive aspects of you, under the guise of, oh, this is a funny, entertaining story.
Yeah,
and if you've got no stories to tell about yourself, you've probably lived a boring life. So you should probably get some stories to tell.
Yeah,
and do some cool shit,
or make something up.
Yeah, I wouldn't make. Actually, no, don't make something up. Yeah, then it forces you to go out and do cool shit.
Yeah,
right. Have better friends, do cool things together, and then you'll have some really fun shit to talk about.
Right.
So there's that. I think the art of like never-ending having never-ending conversation it's a skill you have to kind of learn. And there's a couple of ways to go about it, like that I was at least taught, is like random association. Right. So if someone says a word, like if I say the word like pineapple, what's the first thing you think of after pineapple? Like a word association that comes from that. What would it be?
Tequila.
Cool. Yeah. But the idea is like if she gives me anything, I can use that as like a tangent to segue and change the conversation into something else. Yeah. And if there's one thing that will keep women kind of hooked in a conversation, it's you constantly changing the topic all the time.
Really?
Yeah, I think so. Like because what does it do? It leaves like an open loop. If I didn't finish that story completely and I just went segued and talked about something else, she's still like hooked. She's like, it's like a fish on a hook. She's still like hooked on that previous topic, and now I'm off somewhere else. And now she's like, she wants that. People want closure. They want the conclusion. They want the story to like kind of end.
Right.
So there's that aspect to it.
So it's like this massive buildup until you could plausibly take her to the right place.
Yeah, I mean, you don't necessarily have to keep everything built up. You can finish it at times, but it's the idea of being able to just not run out of things to talk about. Yeah, I think is a big skill set there, and the way and how to like elicit conversation out of her. Asking like interesting questions is pretty key. Like not just boring ass shit. Like you know, I mean, you probably know all the stuff before you can get on a date anyway. Like, you know, where are you from? What do you do for work? Or like boring shit like that. Like, ask something that's going to ask questions that are either open-ended or going to lead to like a really interesting conversation. Like, you know, what were you like in high school? Like, what kind of girl were you in high school? Were you like were you the dork? Were you the popular girl? You know, the mean girl? What were you? Every girl will always say they're like something in between. By the way, they'll all say that. They all think there's something in between.
Yeah.
And dudes say the same thing too. Guys will say like, oh, I was like friends with the cool kids, but I was friends with the nerds. So many guys will say that if that topic ever comes up. By the way,
yeah,
everyone thinks they're like, you know, the in betweener. But that's an example of a question that gets you to find out a bit about her values, about how she got to where she is today. You could ask something like, you know, if you could go back in time and ask your like, you know, 12-year-old, give your 12-year-old self or your 16-year-old self any words of advice, what would you give her? And then you're actually opening her up to accidentally tell you some of her own red flags. So it's a bit sneaky, you know.
Fair enough.
You can kind of entrap women a little bit like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. If there's here's a good tip. If you want to find out a red flag on a woman, just insult a group of people about something. So, like, for example, if you just randomly if you said like, not that you should, I'm not saying you should say this, but like as an example, if you're on a date, you're like, oh man, OnlyFans girl's a complete whores. You would find out instantly if she's an OnlyFans girl. She will let you know. She will tell you. Like, women do not have the ability to like hold back their emotions when they're offended.
Yeah.
So this is also, by the way, how you find out if she took the COVID vax.
Okay.
So you just say, man, everyone who took the vax is a fucking idiot, right?
Yeah.
And then you wait for her reaction.
Right.
And if she gets
red
in the face and gets really angry or defensive,
yeah,
it's a pretty clear sign that she was duped into taking.
So if she defends her own friends, you kind of know.
Yeah,
she's probably one of
bingo. See, and you can use that for basically anything.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, and then you know like what category you're ultimately going to put her into.
Yeah, and I think and I like personally as an older guy, I think, you know, if you're looking for like a woman to be a wife, you're looking for like something long term to have, you know, a woman to have kids with, be really specific with like be filtering like with your criteria before you even get on a date with a woman, and when you and filter hard on that first date. Like, ask the questions that like, you should have a very clear list of like criteria of whether it will be like, okay, wifey material versus not wifey material, you know. And you should understand what your criteria are, and you should be nailing down these questions on that first date, so you're not wasting your fucking time.
And it's also like about the frame you're putting onto it too. It's like you're getting her to invest in you when most guys are chasing after her.
Completely.
Right. And you flip the script in your favor.
Totally. Yeah. If you're the one probing her for like, you know, the vax status or whatever it is, it's like you're the one probing her for like all these qualifying things.
Yeah.
Like, she's on the back foot and is qualifying to you.
So what are your biggest red flags? We have vaccine, body count.
I think you said hammer on the back stuff.
There was one I think you said about if she smokes weed. Is that one?
Oh, but I hate girls who smoke weed. I hate it so bad.
Wait, like that's just a personal preference, or it's like, do you believe like women who smoke weed are tend to be more promiscuous?
I think that's evidently the case too. Yeah, that's not why I hate it. I just hate the dopiness.
Yeah.
It's beyond that. My reasoning is far more esoteric. Than that. Yeah. I mean, so like I would say, vax weed. I'd say if she's like if she drinks too much, that's a big red flag.
Yeah.
Even though I've boozed quite a bit in my past, I'm sober now.
Dude, I regret trying to outdrink you that one night. I'll never try.
That at Michael's place?
Access Vegas. Remember, I was bartending that night. You were like,
yeah, bro, I can put it away.
Oh yeah,
it's bad. it's not a good thing.
And we didn't end at the podcast. We went out for like hours. Yeah, I remember that.
It's not a good thing. What else would I have? Her relationship with her father, like what that dynamic is like. Yeah, like does she just shit talk her parents? Yeah, you know, that's probably a red flag. She just shit talking them from day one, or she has actually respect for her father. Right. Does she believe in like, you know, does she want to have kids? Does she want, and that's a bit like specifically, does she want your kids is what you want to look for. But because you need to be, especially if you're dating a woman who's like in her, this is a real key qualifier. If you're with a woman who's in her late 20s, early 30s, who says she wants kids, you have to be very, very fucking selective and cautious, because
Why?
she wants kids from anyone because their clock's running out.
Yeah.
You want a woman who wants your kids. And this is why I personally, like my fiance, when I met her, she's 24. Like, I went for a younger woman because she didn't care. She wasn't interested in having a family at that point.
Right.
She fucking is now. She really, really wants kids now, but she wants my kids.
Yeah.
And that's the like. That's why I think guys who are quite successful should actually aim for women who are a bit younger, because it's easier to filter for that. It's easier to not get taken advantage of and just end up being like the sperm donor, who she then like fobs off and tries to get child support from, because she just wanted anyone's kid. She just wanted to be a mother. Didn't really matter who it was.
Or even worse, a lot of those girls who, and it's unfortunate, but I just see it too often. A lot of those women will like find a guy who'll provide for them, cheat, get pregnant with some other guy's kid, and then that nice guy's raising some other dude's kid.
Even worse. There's another question you can ask her. What do you think about paternity testing?
Mandatory. Should be mandatory.
Fucking mandatory.
Yeah. Should be mandatory.
Super mandatory. Yeah. That tells you a lot. That tells you you could very easily make that argument. Like, well, here's why men.
Yeah, she's against paternity tests on the date. You're kind of.
Yeah, it's like, well, this bitch is just telling me red flags.
Yeah,
she's just saying she's okay with women cheating on their father, on the baby daddies or whatever.
Yeah.
Those are some that kind of are just coming to my mind.
100%. I actually want to ask this question. As someone who was in the industry specifically, I know, obviously knowing you, I know you wouldn't date or take a girl seriously who was in the industry. I know
I did date girls in the industry when I was in the industry.
When you were in the industry, but now that you're out, you're more established, you want to have a family.
Yeah.
I know that is a no-go for you. I guess my question for you is there a correlation from your experience with, girls who are in this industry and them having like a traumatic past, a lot of sexual abuse? Do you feel like that's just a myth that's perpetuated, or do you think that's like more accurate than
not? It's not 100% accurate,
of course.
But there's definitely like a significant subset of women in it. Like maybe it's a third, maybe it's 2/3. Obviously I'm not
higher than average.
Yes, I would definitely say it's higher than average. Obviously I'm not kind of polling every girl I worked with that question. You're just sort of the only ones I was aware of that had some kind of past traumatic experience at a young age or whatever are the ones who kind of volunteered that information.
Yeah.
Anyway. To you or to like the crew or to anyone who's around you, or if you're at a networking event or a party or something like that, it just comes up in conversation. Or they bring it up on Twitter or something. That's actually very common. They'll
Twitter, huh?
Yeah, they'll talk about like past trauma and assault and stuff on Twitter very openly.
Interesting.
Yeah, kind of like it's their therapist or something. But yeah, so you're kind of going off of the women who volunteer that information. So I would say it is above average, but it's definitely not 100%.
Right. Yeah. Right. So when you were actually in the industry and you were dating girls in the industry, did you find it hard? Sorry. Did you find it hard to date them in the sense that they really were subject to a lot of stimulus? They weren't as attached to you. Did you feel like, you know what I'm asking?
Exactly what you're talking about, bro.
Yeah.
There's one girl in mind that's popping in my head. Yeah, bro. I could have just doxed someone. Actually, I won't dox someone. Because I know who.
If you ever say anything, I'll cut it out.
I know who she's dating right now.
Yeah,
and he's the son of a very, very famous guy.
We'll talk after.
We'll talk about that after.
Yeah.
She was a fucking lunatic. Anyway, but she was exactly what you described. It's like just so much stimulus going on in her life.
Yeah,
and we only dated for like maybe like a month or something. It was like a real fucking flash in the pan thing. But it was a lesson. It taught me a hell of a lot. Actually, I'll tell you a funny story about that.
Yeah.
So, I was like crashing at this. I was, I kind of had my stuff at this girl's place or whatever, just like like a day bag or whatever. Like I was sleeping over for a couple of nights, and there was an award show going on that night, and I think it was like the Urban X Awards, which is basically like for like interracial porn and like like black dudes banging white chicks, basically.
It was like a BET.
It was like the awards, the awards for that specific kind of genre of porn.
Interesting.
And she was like, "Oh, I'm gonna go to the award show. Are you gonna come?" I'm like, "Well, I'm not likely to win an award at this show, so no, I'm fine." Like, they ain't giving me an award.
Yeah.
I'm not in the category.
Yeah.
So instead, I decided to go shoot content with another girl.
Yeah.
Right. So I went shoot content means basically bang on camera. Yeah. And so I went.
By the way, what was the dynamic like at this point? She only films with you or something, or just
she did 99% like solo stuff.
Yeah.
she had like a big Snapchat, and she did like nude stuff. She would half of her Snapchat. She would like a big paid Snapchat. She made shitloads of money. She was making like $100,000 a month. Jesus. And all she would do, she would like film like 8 snaps a day. 5 of them would be her like smoking a bong in a bikini. I think this is probably why I don't like girls who smoke weed. It was like a trauma from that experience. And then she would like play with herself with a vibrator, or like get another female porn star around.
Yeah.
And, like,
so at this point, if she was filming, she was only with you.
No, she had a couple of gigs like here and there.
Yeah.
She'd maybe shot like in like 6 months. She'd maybe done like 1 or 2.
Okay.
Like boy girl scenes.
But go on. What were you saying?
Anyway, yeah. So and that was either before me or after me. But at the time, so I said, I'm not going to go to this award ceremony. I'm going to go over here and shoot content with this girl. So I grabbed all my bags and I went. Actually, so she went to the award show, got shit faced, and my phone died. And I actually stayed the night at this other girl's house. And I actually then ended up dating that girl. So it kind of worked out, found it kind of weird. But I woke up, my phone was dead. Yeah. I charged my phone, I wake up, and I wake up to all these notifications on my Twitter. And it's all these people on Twitter calling me a piece of shit and saying, Stirling Cooper, why are you breaking into women's houses? And I'm like, what the fuck are these guys talking about? And I'm like, there's like 100 notifications. I've got to go deep to like figure out what the fuck is going on. Yeah. And I'm laying in bed next to this other girl.
After you just filmed the scene.
Yeah, I'm like, give me. I'm like, hang on. So I'm just gonna sort something out. Hang on. Like, so it turns out, it's long story short, here's what happened. So this girl that I had obviously was stopped seeing immediately. She went to this award show, got shit faced, came back to her house where I had previously been staying. Noticed that my bags weren't in the house anymore. As I'd left the apartment that day, I'd had my bags in my hand, and I was like, cool, I'm going to go shoot content. I'll see you tomorrow. Walked out with the bags in my hand in front of her. She was so shit-faced, she got back and didn't see my bags there. She assumed that I had broken into her house somehow and taken my bags. And then proceeded to jump onto Twitter and tell her army of 500,000 simp white knights that Stirling Cooper had broken into her apartment. And then she'd gone to sleep. And I'd woken up to the ramifications of that.
Oh my God.
And then I messaged, and I have an alibi, like laying next to me.
Crazy. I've never heard this story.
I have an alibi laying right next to me, a woman I've been having sex with for the last 24 hours.
Yeah.
And so basically I text this other woman. I'm like, what the fuck is going on? I've been here all night. So and so can vouch for that. You are insane. Take that shit down now. So she took the post down, but she didn't apologize. Yeah. And didn't do any retraction. Right. Because she's a piece of shit. And basically I had to like deal for like a few days. I had to like deal with the ramifications of
So you learned your lesson.
Yeah. It's women with like power and no accountability are just petty tyrants. Yeah. They are really something else. I don't think there's any better example of it than like girls in the adult industry who get a chip on their shoulder about something. They will try to fucking ruin a guy, even if the chip on the shoulder is a complete fabrication. For sure, they will just try to destroy a guy just because they can. Yeah, and they were never held accountable to it. It's kind of crazy. Yeah, Sartain, he says this one thing. It's like, you shouldn't worry about like how attractive a woman is. It's more about how much stimulus does she need. He says that a lot. And I feel like this is a perfect example of that. I like that. It's a very good litmus test. Yeah. Because like the more attention, the more validation, the more parties she needs to go to, the more drugs she needs to do. That is just what you're ultimately competing with. Good point. That's very well stated. Yeah. I gotta completely agree with that. Damn. Yeah. He's nailed it. Yeah. So it's funny enough, I saw this documentary one time. It was called like After Porn Ends, and I've seen that one. Yeah. And it talks about, I wanted to talk to you about this, like the lives of like performers after they get out, and like what the differences are for men when they get out and for women. Like, and it's crazy, like the dichotomy you see. Like, you see a lot of these guys start their own businesses. They'll start their YouTube channels, start coaching men. They'll get high fives everywhere they go.
more women are even attracted to them. I'm sure you see that a lot. And
it doesn't hurt me in any way.
It doesn't hurt you, exactly. But with women, it's a completely different story. I always like to ask the question, like, if you had a son, right, and they found out his dad was a porn star, nothing would happen to him. If they found out his mother was a porn star, that kid's getting bullied.
Totally.
Yeah,
right? He's getting fucked up.
Yeah. So talk more about that, like that discrepancy between men and women after their careers end.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I only probably know like a handful of people who've actually gotten out or finished their careers. And let me think about the few that I know.
Yeah.
There's a couple of women I know who kind of in a similar situation to me. They feel they I mean, either they regret it or they
aged out.
No, one of them's definitely younger. Yeah, one of them's younger. One was a MILF, one was a younger girl. But they both left it because they became disillusioned with it, and they didn't align with it anymore. And then they're on to like more positive things, which is great. One of them actually helps women get out of the industry and find careers.
Oh, that's awesome.
She's trying to double down on that, which is really good.
That's awesome.
In terms of guys, you know what? And it's really tragic, actually. Like, 3 guys instantly come to my mind who unfortunately have all passed away. Now they didn't pass. They obviously their career ended because they passed away. And it was like 2 of them were like a suicide. One was like a horrific motorcycle accident. There's a real big like problem with people and like dying young.
Yeah,
who are in the industry, specifically performers. Yeah, a lot of them end up on like a drug habit and like take their life. I think one girl, like Emily Willis, is actually still in like a coma. Yeah, from an incident. Like, it's fucked up. So yeah, but then there's a couple of women I do know who got out. They kind of changed direction. There's a couple of women I know who got out, but they got out via like they bagged a like wealthy boyfriend route. Yeah, I see that pattern too. Yeah, I think those are really
a wealthy simp.
Yeah, those are kind of like the 2 routes. Like that, most of them want that. They want the one. They're pretty much all hoping to get the wealthy simp route.
Yeah, that's like Riley Reid. I think that's what she did, right?
She did that. Lana Rhodes did that, at least for a little bit. Mia Khalifa did that for a little bit. I think she's on like 2nd or 3rd marriage now. Yeah. The one I'm thinking of, the one who was like dated for like a month that I mentioned before, she's done that route because her current boyfriend is the son of a very rich, wealthy, well-known celebrity. Yeah. In terms of the guys, I don't really know. Guys who have kind of gotten out. Like, a lot of them just stick with it. Yeah. For like, because the guys can do it for like 20 plus years. The guys can do it for forever. Yeah. But the women can't really. It's very rare to find a woman who's stuck it out for like a long time. Like, right. Just because it's just a numbers game. Like, there's like, if you look at the talent, they're not just like, not the OnlyFans stuff, that's kind of skewed the numbers and the way people look at it now. But if you look at like the professional porn industry in America, you're probably looking at a female talent pool of like 1,000 women and a male talent pool of like 40 dudes. Yeah, I was thinking that, dude. It's like just a small group of guys who sleep with all the girls there and they all just like switch. Yeah. So it's like, it's the same dudes like doing all the work. Yeah. So they can work for 20 and they can, no one cares if it's the same dude. They can, because the women are the product of the industry. So like they need variety in the women. They don't care about the variety in the dude who's putting his penis in them. Right. It's like they just care if he does the job correctly. Exactly. So yeah, I don't honestly know many guys who've like kind of gone out or retired or anything like that. 100%. And were you in the adult industry and then you became an escort, or you did those at the same time? I did the escorting first and then I stopped that to get into porn. Oh, so escorting came first. I did that in Australia. Okay, got it. How did you tell more about that? I feel like people don't talk about that enough with you, right? So tell me, how did you get into like the escorting stuff? Well, it's legal in Australia for a start. They have like forums and stuff where you advertise and stuff. And I was in the swinging scene before that as a bull. Yeah. So I was like the dude who like, I'm the ring-in who comes in and puts on a show, right? For the cuck. Yeah. It's the dudes in the that hotel room chair that's always in the corner. Yeah, like he's on that chair. He's on the chair. He's on the chair. And I'm on the one on the bed with his missus. Yeah. And so I'd met a bunch of girls in that scene who were either escorts, who had either done escorting or who'd done porn. And so they were encouraging me they were like, you'd be good at this. You should give it a try. Then I ended up doing like a photo shoot, and I had some really good looking photos. I was like jacked. I was like, I'll give this a try and see if anyone bites, and they did. I got like clients and stuff, and I ended up basically catering to like wealthy businesswomen.
Yeah,
wealthy businesswomen and other female escorts, oddly enough.
Really?
Yeah, women who just wanted a night off.
Interesting.
Well, I was surprised as you just were.
Yeah.
When I got the bookings, I was like, what? No way.
Yeah.
But
so like, was most of the clientele, were they just like older, out of shape women who couldn't like get a man to fuck them, right? Like, what was
you would be I had some beautiful women
really
as clients. I genuinely had some gorgeous women as clients. I was like, what the fuck is going on?
Like, why are you getting paid?
This is so weird. Like, I was stunned. Yeah. But there was a couple, like, I wouldn't say that they were older women, like, like mid to like 30s or early 40s.
Yeah.
But they weren't for their age, they were good looking. Like, they were in shape. They weren't out of shape and stuff. They were just lonely. They were just like unable to find a man. I legit had one woman who was like, I think she was like, she would have been like mid early 30s, who was legit a virgin.
Really?
Yeah, and she hired me to take her virginity.
Wow.
Yeah, Italian lady, actually. And I eventually asked, and like she wasn't lying. I could, like, that was, it was a hymen. Like, it was a case of like, I sat down and aftercare and stuff, and I asked her like, how did you never lose your virginity up till this point? She's like, she tried to save herself for marriage. She was a Catholic. She tried to save herself for marriage. Find a good guy, and she went through like 2 or 3 relationships, and they just never ended in marriage. And she sort of kept her vow, I guess you could say, and never ended up sleeping with them, and just never led to sex. And so she eventually got to the point where she was like, I just need to get this monkey off my back.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a very interesting scenario.
I feel like, because initial thought as a guy, you would be like, well, if a woman needs to pay for sex, like how how undesirable is the girl,
But with this situation, it was like she wanted to hire a guy like me to do it.
Yeah.
To one, because there's no like attachment, there's no awkwardness. There's there's a level of professionalism to it. She's not going to get heartbroken, so to speak.
Yeah.
She knows that she'll enjoy herself, and I'll take care of her. And she can just be that pressure and that sort of
it's probably because a lot of like these businesswomen are in their masculine, so you get to like put them in their feminine type of thing.
It's a very big aspect to it. Yeah. Especially with the really, really rich ones, that was a big aspect to it. They wanted to relax, let go, have a man, like be a man around them. And because think about it, they struggle to find a guy who is very masculine, who's on their level, who wants to date them. Wow. You can't find it. If they're in the mid to late 30s, and that guy's dating the 20-year-olds. That guy's in the clubs out here in Vegas, like getting popping bottles, being surrounded by like 20-year-olds.
Yeah,
or 21-year-olds, I should say. Sorry.
Yeah.
So where are her options? They don't really exist anymore. It's a real shame.
Was when you were escorting for these types of women, was it more because obviously like usually when men pay for it, it's just like for the sex thing, but obviously women, it's more of a process. So was it just the sex, or was there like a whole date? Was there a whole process you took them through?
The boyfriend experience. Yeah. So you take it's dinner dates, basically. Dinner dates, wine and dine them. Kind of the same, like the same stuff. Like, this is why I was very good at a first date.
Yeah. Paid for it.
I got pretty good at keeping a conversation going, keeping a charming, entertaining conversation going, making a woman feel loved, making a woman feel beautiful. That was my job, to make her feel beautiful,
right, and
make her feel attractive again,
right. And you don't, obviously, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I would think you would do that. You'd have to do that less in porn, because they're there just for
completely. You don't do it at all.
You don't have to do anything.
You don't do it at all in porn.
Yeah, you just go in there, clock in, clock out.
I mean, if there's some chemistry there between you and the other girl you're working with, fantastic.
Yeah.
But it's not necessarily the case. Like, you don't, like, if I'm feeling lazy that day, I'm like, I don't even have to talk to the girl before I have sex with her. It really depended upon what kind of mood I was and how much sleep I got the night before.
Hilarious. That's awesome, man. So I guess, something we talk about a lot, at least me and Sartain talk about this a lot. And I think it's a dangerous, route that guys fall into. I haven't done it from experience, but maybe you've heard of other guys who do this. And I wanted to get your opinion on it. I think a lot of guys you know, they don't work on like the things in between. I call it the things in between, meaning like their game, the way they talk, especially if they're a little autistic, you know, they don't work on those certain things. And that actually fucks them up even more because they think like maybe they need status, money, their physique, and they get those things, but they're almost like a bigger simp. Like I'm sure you've seen like the guy who's a simp, then he gets a lot more money, and then he's just a richer, bigger simp. You know, you know, talk about the dynamics of guys. I see two things: guys who pay for sex. That's a very dangerous path of like what that does for your mind. It's almost like an extension of porn in a way. And also the guys who are in like the sugar daddy, sugar baby arrangements. Have you like learned a lot about that and like how that dynamic goes down?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say I've got so much experience with it firsthand.
No, not having experience, but like, have you seen like what it does to guys and like other guys who've done it?
A little bit, yeah. I actually have had guys reach out to me who have like used escorts quite a lot.
Yeah,
and they try to they'll reach out to me like I'm trying to like wean off using them.
Yeah,
and you know I want to learn how to be better in bed because I've just relied on like being with an escort who does all the work.
Yeah,
you know, and he's never really learned to like please a woman properly or whatever. Or he's got a very inflated sense or a falsely inflated sense of how good he actually is in bed, how charming he actually is. That's the big one.
Oh, I see that a lot. Like I see guys who like have told me in Sartain, ask Michael when you see him tomorrow, right? They like the girl was charging like $1,500. He talked her down to $1,000. He's telling us how he has game. This is real. This is real. But yeah, go ahead. Like,
oh my god,
a lot of guys legitimately think they have game from doing it. It's crazy.
Yeah, I think that's the big. It gives them this really false sense of like how attractive they are, how charming they are.
Mm-hmm.
And if you think about it, like that guy has to cling to that. Otherwise, his world comes collapsing down.
What cling to what?
That false reality that he's actually charming.
Yeah.
Because the escort he just paid $1,500 to said he was.
Yeah.
If he dares to go out into the real world and actually try to attract a real woman who he's not paying for, he will quickly realize that his entire worldview is lies and it will come crashing down on top of him.
Yeah.
Which is not a nice feeling.
No, if you pay like I don't know $2,000 to fuck a 10, you fuck a 10, and then you go out to the nightclub
and the six rejects you. You're gonna be a bit shook up, right? So those
in the head.
which is the reason why those guys are really hesitant to actually do the work.
Yeah,
and you know, develop the social skills, develop the networking skills, develop all these attractive traits about them, because it's so damaging. Like they're in a worse spot than the guy who is like a virgin.
Oh, you think so?
Yeah, because they've got like the virgin at least has like no reference experience of being with a beautiful woman.
Yeah.
The dude who's banging hookers thinks like has deluded himself into thinking that he is worthy of a 10.
Yeah.
When in reality he ain't.
Yeah.
So he's fucking himself up way more than the guy who actually can't get laid at all by paying for it.
Yeah.
That's my opinion.
Honestly, I think I mean living here, you know, we see a lot of shit, right? Living here, right? I think the sugar daddy, sugar baby thing is like, it takes that to an nth degree. Like, I swear to God, man, like, I hate to say this just for anyone watching this, but it's just so true. There are so many mid women in Vegas who, I swear to God, dude, I'll take you out. I'm going to show you what I'm talking about. There's so many mid women in Vegas who have like these guys paying their bills for their apartment, taking out to nice dinners. And here's the thing. They don't fuck them.
I do.
It's crazy.
Cannot fucking comprehend.
Yes.
What would drive a man to do that, other than like extreme loneliness?
Yeah,
extreme loneliness. And this tells
like I almost respect the guy who pays hookers a little bit more. I don't respect him a lot, but I respect him a little bit more.
Yeah. At least he understands, he understands the value, like he understands the transaction. What's
it's
going
honest.
On. You know? It's an honest transaction. Yes, I agree. Yeah. Like here's the thing, like the guy, the dude who is like broke and hasn't got women, like the guy who's completely broke, has no money, but he also has no women at all. Like he's got no way of attracting women. He's just as miserable, as that sugar baby guy.
Yeah,
because that guy is rich, but he has to pay women to give him any fucking attention,
right?
To give him the time of day. So deep down in his soul, like he knows what's going. Like deep down in his soul, part of him knows that he fucking hates himself.
Of course.
It's like I'd rather be the broke guy with no women than the dude who's rich and has to pay women to hang out with him.
Yeah. Because if she's hanging out with you, you know it's not. She must like you at some point, right?
Yeah. It's not, and especially like if it's in that situation you described, like it's a sugar baby arrangement and there's no sexual transaction going on whatsoever.
It's more common than you think.
The dude's getting taken for a complete ride. I am blown away that a guy would even let that happen. I don't get it.
Yeah, it's more common, dude. I see crazy shit. I see like a girl. She has a sugar baby. She lives at his apartment when he's not there. And then she doesn't fuck him. And
she's fucking someone else on the side.
Oh, no. She's fucking someone else in his place, bro. It's crazy. I see it all the time. And
what is going on?
And then they're telling me and Michael, like, hey, I got him to pay my bills. They're making fun of him and shit. And it's fucking crazy.
Oh, my God.
It's crazy.
These guys need help.
Yeah, they do.
They need help.
They do. I mean, do you think there's like a point of no return, though? I hate to say it, but like it's a question to ask. I see some guys who are so far gone in it, man.
Well, the point of no return is when he runs out of money. That's the point of no return.
Yeah. That's a good point.
I mean, like, don't get me wrong, like I've been like, when I was casually dating and stuff, I've like flown girls out to like, hang out with me in whatever city I'm in and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But there's always ended up in sex.
Yeah.
Like even if it's the situation where I've flown out like her and her girlfriend just because like cool, I'm fucking her and I'm setting her girlfriend up with my buddy.
Sure.
Like there's something going on.
Mm-hmm.
It's like it's never been a situation where it's like this is not ended in sex because I wouldn't even entertain that.
Yeah.
Like I make it's pretty fucking clear before I've even said, hey, come spend time with me here or whatever. Like that sex is on the table.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, but unfortunately, dude, it's more common than you think. I've seen that happen. Obviously, I've seen that happen here. I see it happen in Miami. I see it happen in Boston, of all places. I see it happen everywhere. It's just, it's very odd. And I mean, I guess it's also something I never understood. I never understood the strip club thing either.
What's the strip club thing?
Like the idea of putting money in a strip club.
Oh, strip clubs. I thought you said shrimp club.
Oh, no. Strip club. Yeah. Strip clubs. Yeah. The strip club thing.
That's a new one. I'm doing
yeah.
Strip club. Yeah. Strip club thing. Yeah.
Yeah. I never got that. It's just like you're paying to get a hard on and leave. It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I've casually like dated or like had strippers as fuck buddies before.
Mm-hmm.
So strippers. I think strippers are actually the best sex.
Agreed.
Yeah, they're better than porn stars in the bedroom. They're better than porn stars.
Why do you think that?
Because they know how to arouse a guy. Their whole job is to turn you on.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Porn star's job is to fuck for a camera.
Right.
Stripper's job is to be a coquette.
She's a salesperson. That's what she is ultimately. Yeah.
Her job, like the strippers know how to be sexual and attractive and elicit lust out of you.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're the subject of their affection, sex is fucking phenomenal.
Right.
Yeah.
Awesome, dude. Awesome. Some other things I wanted to cover. We covered engineering serendipity. Oh, another thing. You were covering this recently in a lot of your content. I think a lot of guys struggle with neediness. One of the biggest things, and I think you talk about that in sealing the deal on like the first date, right? Talk about like how neediness kills attraction with women. Yeah,
it's this idea of like you have to get to the point as a guy, I think, where sex has no power over you.
Yeah,
because if a woman can control you by like dangling the possibility of pussy, you are needy. Like they smell it on a guy.
Yeah.
And I think a big part of that is like this kind of ties into being comfortable, being a sexual man, like being sexually confident.
Yeah.
Because you're not afraid of, showing showing that you have balls. You're not afraid of showing that you have intent, that you have sexual intent towards a woman.
Yeah.
Like that demonstrates like, because there's always a risk involved for a guy to do that, right? There's a risk of rejection.
Yeah.
Right. And if you're not afraid to show that you have sexual intent, obviously in a charming way, not in a creepy aggressive way.
Yeah, you got to make that distinction.
Make that very
a lot of guys like actually go more into that, right? What's the difference between having like that sexual vibe, that sexual intent, versus being the guy who's needy? A lot of guys fuck that up.
Yeah, like it comes from outcome independence.
Yeah,
it's like cool. Like the examples of the statements I might have been given before. I mean, if I said to a girl, we'd make some beautiful kids together.
Yeah,
our kids would be so good looking. It's ridiculous. Everyone's just not even fair.
Yeah,
how ridiculous like kids would be. That is. It's confident. I'm implying that we're gonna have a sexual relationship. I'm doing it in a funny, cocky way, but there's no like. I'm not throwing it out there and like. Okay, if I told an autistic guy to say that line, let's say if I told a guy with no social calibration whatsoever to say the line, here's how he would do it. Where's the camera hanging there?
We're clipping this one, guy.
Well, our kids would look really hot, wouldn't they? Don't you think? Don't you think? That's kind of how he would do it.
Your artistic impression is so accurate.
I'm good at being autistic. But
you've role played this shit like multiple times.
He's sitting there waiting for like a positive affirmation. He's waiting for like something back. That is the neediness.
Yeah,
that's coming across that sort of stuff. And if you can just roll with it, and you're just throwing stuff out there, not caring if she bites, not caring if she agrees, not care. Like I don't give a fuck if you have sex with me or not, young lady. Like it's just. You can take it or leave it. That is, true power because you're not controlled by the pussy anymore. Whereas the neediness is like, I'll think of the guy who like incessantly texts a woman. It's actually, I think this is a really good practical example for guys. Yeah. Let's say you're trying to set up a date with a woman, right? The way I will set up a date is like, obviously, if there's a little bit of texting back and forth, and then I've decided, I think you should set a date as quickly as possible, right? Sure. If you get a number from like Instagram or you get a number from like a dating app or whatever, set the date as quickly as possible, like within the next couple of days, right?
Yeah.
Cool. The conversation is going to be something like, all right, the text is going to be something like, meet me at Top Golf, 9:00 tomorrow night. Don't wear jeans, wear a dress or a skirt or something that looks cute. Or I'll send her a photo from her Instagram, like, wear that red dress. Like something very fucking specific. A needy guy would send that, and then if she doesn't reply back within like 4 hours, he's double texting her. Like, you still cool for tomorrow night? Or the next, if she says yes, the next day he's coming back with a text like, you still good for tonight? Yeah. Like he's assuming that he's not going to win. He's assuming the loss versus assuming the win on the other end is like, cool, I've told her 8:00 this time, whatever, bang. I'm assuming she's rocking up. Cool, whether I hear back from her or not, I'm assuming. Because I'm going to go have fun at Top Golf anyway. Yeah. Fuck her. If she's not there, I'll have a good time anyway. But like, it's assuming the win. And the guy who's that needy, that desperate, he's going to double text, he's going to follow up, he's going to assume that he's going to lose it. And the act of doing that is going to make sure that he actually loses it. He's going to creep around and weird around.
He's going to self-fulfilling prophecy.
Completely.
Yeah. Has Sartain ever told you the method? He calls it FIRE. Has he ever told you that?
No.
So let's say you do get stood up. I have it on my phone. It's like a folder of like all these videos called FIRE. So let's say I get stood up.
Okay.
Post a story, me out of the bikini competition, me with a bunch of girls, me with. It doesn't fucking matter if it's like 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Post all that shit. Post me out with you and the boys.
Yeah.
Just be like, I had a good time anyway.
Yeah.
It works flawlessly.
And they follow you. They hit you back up again.
Oh, of course.
But that's genius. I love that. It's just fucking great. That is great. Remember that. Whoever's listening to it, mark that down. That is a fucking great idea. I love that shit.
Yeah. That I give credit to Sartain. He calls it FIRE. The folder in your phone, FIRE. Put everything in there. All your old stories, everything like that. Because even if he talked to me about this as well, like the power of social media is even if you subconsciously know something happened and it didn't happen that night, the primal response you have, you almost can't control. That's just how social media just works at the end of the day.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what. I'll also say that people aren't as aware of that as you'd think. Like I'll post stuff from 2 years ago in like it's like a video of me in like Portugal or a video of me in Spain or a video of me in UK or whatever, and we'll just happen to use it for like some kind of promotion on YouTube, like a photo, like on a YouTube community post or on
like
Instagram.
A thumbnail or something.
Yeah, and the number of people who will chime in and be like, "Oh, are you in that city right now?" Like,
no one does.
You know that like people can take photos and post them like 6 months later, right?
Yeah.
Like, not everyone,
do you know who does that more than anyone? Women.
Like, not everyone posts the photo the instant they take it. It's kind of like, yeah, it always kind of baffles me to think that you would assume that I posted that the second I'm in there. Yeah, I don't know.
No, I know a lot of guys like they travel a lot, but what they'll do is like, let's say, you know, they go to Miami, they're going to get like 30 photos in Miami. Then they're going to go to New York, they're going to get 30 photos in New York. Then they're going to go to Dubai, get 30 photos there. Then they're going to go to Spain, get 30 photos there. And then they just post out of order. So it just always looks like they're like, it's like they're omnipresent. They're in like a different place all the time.
I do that as well for OPSEC though.
For what?
Operational security. Like, I don't want anyone to know exactly where I am.
Oh yeah.
So I never like, I think I know Justin has this rule too. Like, we never post like where we are. So like we'll always if we took a good photo or a video or whatever,
post it way after.
We always post it after we've left that location.
Yeah,
always.
Have you guys? I mean, obviously, I don't want to get too much into it, but have you guys like noticed like stalkers or people like tracking you guys down or like even trying that on you guys?
Not yet, but there's like, I'm just a paranoid guy.
Yeah, I'm sure with Tristan and Andrew that definitely happens.
Well, that's where we learned it from.
Yeah,
we learned it from them.
Yeah,
because they have to really be careful.
Yeah,
because if they even before they were like world famous, blow up in Bucharest, they were still famous. And if they posted in Bucharest, they get people turning up.
Right.
And Justin will do the same. Justin's the same situation now in Miami. If you post somewhere in Miami, you'll get people turning up.
Yeah.
So it's for your it's more for your own sanity than anything else.
Yeah. No, I get that. So
I'll get people like if I'm out and people recognize me, I'll get people coming up and asking for photos and stuff, and I'm fine with that. That's cool. Yeah, I just don't want to.
How often would you say?
But especially if I'm with my fiance or something, I'm not gonna like fucking post a photo where we're at right now and just have it's just.
Yeah, especially if that's gonna be the mother of your kids and stuff like that, you want to keep that private and stuff. Yeah. What is so for you with the marriage? Is it gonna be? I would assume for you, it's gonna be more a religious thing. You're not getting the government involved with marriage, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Got it. I think modern and mainstream society has like suppressed like the hero in you, right? It has suppressed like men in general, right? Like that drive to go out and conquer the world, the drive to go out and talk to women, the drive to be like the hero in their own lives. And it's made men very, very unconfident. And I think tying this back to what I was about to say, a lot of men are afraid to put themselves in the frame you put yourself in, right? Like being the sexual guy, being labeled as a player, like they're afraid of that judgment. But I want to hear your testament. Has that really hindered your dating life at all? You being a player?
Not at all. Precisely zero. Like people, and you would.
And guys, this is a former male porn star, and it hasn't hindered him.
You would think, like, of like, because there's a difference between being a player and then being a sex worker.
Yeah,
right? You would think that a lot of women would get turned off by the idea of me like having had a lot of unprotected sex.
Yeah.
By the way, we always got consistently tested, and I never caught anything on set. Hopefully, we'll never ever catch anything in my life ever.
Yeah.
So that being said, like they don't know that there's still the thought and the possibility, right? So you'd think that it would hinder my dating life. Of all, like, I think the reason it never hindered my dating life is because they're always attracted to me before they find that out anyway. Or if they find me through social media, then they already know what I am or what I did. And if they're sliding in my DMs, they're still attracted anyway.
Yeah.
So I don't ever have to deal with, like, there probably are women out there who wouldn't date me because of my past.
Yeah.
Okay, good for them, fine. But I never end up talking to them anyway. Right. Like it's a non-issue for me because they never come into my life anyway. Because there's plenty of women who don't give a shit about it. And and people
a lot of guys think you only attract promiscuous women,
that's exactly what I was about to say.
Go ahead.
That's exactly what I was about to say.
Yeah.
And a lot of guys will cope and seethe about this. They'll get so angry at the idea of me being able to attract a good woman. They cannot fathom in their mind that a good woman could possibly be attracted to a guy with my past. Bro, like I've dated pastors' daughters. I've dated Muslim women.
Really?
I've dated women with like body counts of like 1. I've dated virgins. I've dated literal virgins. I didn't take her virginity, actually. And I chose not to. Like my fiance has a very, very low body count. Like these are not like promiscuous women.
Yeah.
And the reason I'm able to attract them is because the things that are attractive to all women are universal.
Right.
Pre-selection is attractive to all women.
Yeah.
You know, being dominant and leading is attractive to all women. Being confident and charming and maybe a little bit narcissistic is attractive to women.
Yeah.
Like
and that's a hard truth guys don't want to hear.
Yeah. So it really does. Like, what do you look? Dan Bilzerian is a great example of this.
Mm-hmm.
Like, everybody knows the guy has been with a lot of women and is always surrounded by women.
Mm-hmm.
So if that logic made any sense, if women ever actually thought the way that these guys want to think that women think, the guys who co-conceive about me having a very,
Speaking of, have you met him yet?
I haven't met Dan yet.
Okay.
No.
Yeah, we'll take you at some point.
Oh, nice. Cool.
Yeah.
I'd love to meet him. He sounds like a really cool guy. I've got some friends who are friends with him as well.
Yeah.
He lives like a great guy.
I mean, I'll cut this out. He lives like right there.
Oh, nice.
He lives very close to the strip.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah. But these guys who co-conceive about, like, who think the only woman who would be attracted to me would be, the degenerate woman. The same kind of women who would, be attracted to Dan Bilzerian, man. Like, I'm sure all the women, there's a lot of women in his, maybe not all the women in his, his circle, whatever. But I'm sure a lot of the women that he's been with were good girls.
Yeah.
And the same is true for Andrew and Tristan Tate.
Mm-hmm.
I know because I've met some of these women. Like, the same is true for Justin.
Mm-hmm.
Same is true for Michael, I'm sure, in his past. Like, it's consistent. Like, because women are attracted to guys who are successful.
Right.
Who elicit a lot of these very attractive qualities. It doesn't really matter how they go. What women are attracted to murderers, for fuck's sake.
Yeah.
Like, women are attracted to literal gangsters and drug dealers, for fuck's sake. And good women at that as well. Like, so you don't think that she's gonna be like that. It's coping.
Yeah.
It's a coping mechanism.
Right.
These guys are like, and I'm not trying to shit on, like, Christians or anything here, by the way. But I just see it coming a lot, in particular from Christians who make that argument, who kind of cope about it like that, because in their mind,
make the argument that
the only one who would be attracted to me would be, filthy, degenerate women with high body counts or whatever, right? Because in their mind, they were a good little boy and did everything they were told to do, so they deserve, like, the virgin bride.
Yeah.
And they don't realize, okay, like, you can be good with God. You can be a religious man. You can follow the scripture. And good, I hope you do. But that is different from being an attractive man. Like, it's very different. That doesn't by default make you an attractive man.
Yeah.
You can be a good man without being an attractive man. And vice versa. Vice versa. You can be a piece of shit and still be attractive to women.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I don't personally think I'm a piece of shit. Some people would disagree, but I'd like to think I'm a good man. However, but the point still stands.
Yeah.
Like, those two things are separate.
Right. I think that's such a misconception that people have, where, at least from what I've seen, because being in Vegas, you see girls, like, people harp on nightclubs, and it really pisses me off, because every girl of every background is going to go to a nightclub once in her life. Right, like, the good girls are going to go to a nightclub.
The good girls who will go to one and be like, I don't want to do that ever again.
Yeah,
but they'll probably do it at least once.
Yeah, at least once or a couple times in their life. But I think there's, like, this misconception that there's, like, good girl attraction and there's, like, slutty girl attraction. No, like, there's just being an attractive guy.
Oh, and I this ties heavily into you've kind of made me realize something right now with that point you said that Michael made about how much stimulus the girl gets.
Yeah.
And this is real. It's actually solidified something in my brain, because I always had this theory that the women who guys perceive to be, like, slutty, like the super sluts, right?
Yeah.
The super promiscuous girl, the girl with, like, a massive OnlyFans, the girl who's, like, shaking her ass all over Instagram and anything stuff, right? Or, like, the super porn star, whatever. Most guys the guys who have got no fucking practical real world experience at all would think that girl is easy to get.
Yes.
She is not. She is hard. That super slut. That's just for want of a better description. She is harder to get than the good girl, and here's why.
Wait. You mean harder to sleep with or harder to get commitment from? What do you mean?
I'd say harder to sleep with.
Okay.
I'd say she's even harder to sleep with.
Explain.
Because she needs more. She needs more stimulus, and you're competing against all that stimulus that she's got in her life.
Yeah.
The super slut who's at every rapper's table.
Yeah.
Right. It's harder to sleep with her than the girl who doesn't go to a club.
Right.
I mean, I'm not saying you should pump and dump that girl.
Mm-hmm.
You should, if she's a good girl, like put babies in her.
Yeah.
But she is actually way easier to seduce and get into a relationship with.
Right.
Because you're competing with less stimulus. So that analogy really solidified a lot for me just then.
Yeah.
Because I didn't know how to quite explain it properly, but that's the stimulus is the correct way to explain that.
Yeah.
You've filled a little gap in my knowledge there.
Yeah. No, we have in Vegas we have what's called our litmus test. So if we go to the XS nightclub and we go right to the stage, and if the DJ invites her on stage, if she says yes, that's not your girl. Leave. If she says no, that's your girl.
That's pretty good litmus test.
That's the litmus test. That's the highest stimulus you can have. So that's the litmus test.
Oh, I like it.
Yeah. So if it's like Drake or Marshmello or whoever the fuck it is, if she leaves you, charge it to the game, Yeah.
Damn. I remember I had this conversation on a podcast last week, and I was in London.
Mm-hmm.
And they were talking about someone was posting I think some girl posted photos of herself with Chris Brown.
Bro, yeah. I actually had that on my list to go into.
And it led to like a breakup and stuff.
Oh, no. Yeah. Dude, you haven't heard about this? So it's not only girls posting photos of them being like groped by Chris Brown.
Right.
They're paying $1,000
to get
the photo
That's right,
of them being groped by Chris Brown.
Yeah. That's instant breakup.
Yeah.
Gone. Not a fucking chance.
But the controversy started because a girl who was engaged paid for that photo, posted that photo, and then her boyfriend broke up with her.
Got it. Rightfully so.
Yeah.
Rightfully so. I don't see how this is controversial. That should be the norm.
Yeah.
That is totally unacceptable.
Right. That's just such a great example of
I think if you flipped this for women, right? If you went to a woman and said, how would it give you the ick if your boyfriend lined up for like an hour to get a photo and to then pay to get a photo with like a porn star at AVN?
Mm-hmm.
Would that give you the ick? I think most girls would probably say yes. That would give her the ick.
100%.
It's kind of the equivalency here.
100%.
Because he's like super simping, right?
Mm-hmm.
For this girl that he jerks off to or whatever.
Right.
And you're his girlfriend.
Yeah.
Like, it should make you feel a bit ick.
100%. And also, like, if you compare, because obviously we know men and women are different. There's different standards that we all have, right? If you flip the standard even further, right? Let's say, if you're dating a girl and you heard she had a threesome with Chris Brown, that's a red flag.
Gone.
But if you're a guy and she knows you dated a hot celebrity, that makes you more attractive.
It makes you more attractive.
It's pre-selection.
Yeah.
It's pre-selection at the end of the day.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, that one is crazy because like people forget, like, bro, he beat the shit out of Rihanna.
Yeah.
He beat, and women are still.
I forgot that until you said.
Yeah.
I completely forgot
He
that.
beat the shit out of Rihanna, and women are still paying to take a photo with him.
Right. Yeah,
it's crazy.
Women are attracted to violent men.
Yeah.
Like, there's no if buts or maybes about that. Like,
yeah.
Not necessarily violent. They don't want them to be violent to them.
Yeah.
But they are attracted to men who are violent in general.
Who are capable of doing
Who are capable of violence. They're 100% attracted to that.
Right.
Completely.
Right. I do feel like, with the mainstream media, and especially like, with the feminism movement and all this bullshit, do you feel like I feel like, at least from my experience, there's like what women are saying they're attracted to, or what are saying what turns them on, right? Like, they want to be independent. They want a guy who's like a little bit submissive or more in touch with his feminine. But then I watch your stuff, and then you tell me about like all the fantasies that women have, and women craving to be dominated, craving to be put in their place and all that stuff. Like, I feel like men are just being completely lied to about like what actually makes them attractive.
Well, the proof's in the pudding, man. Because like guys who watch my material actually get fucking results.
Yeah.
It's evident. It's self-evident. I have women DMing me saying, "Thank you. My boyfriend watches your material."
Really?
Yeah. Verbatim saying that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And so it's like I've got a whole, actually I have a big Google Drive with like hundreds of testimonials, and I have a specific folder for women giving me feedback, and it's exactly that. It's like, thank you for teaching men this. Thank you. My boyfriend watches your stuff. Thank you for teaching him that our sex life is amazing now. Blah 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 blah. He's doing things to me that I always wished he did, but he didn't know how to before.
Yeah.
Like, these are the kinds of messages women send me.
Right.
I'm teaching the dude like what she subconsciously fantasizes about, but she's never been able to express in words. And now,
what are some of those common fantasies?
Well, it's not even specifics. It's just the aspect of being a dominant lover. It's the aspect. It's just the guy who will throw her onto the bed with a bit of passion. You know, obviously. Again, I have to do like autistic like warning here. Like, if there's a headboard, don't throw a head into the headboard like a dumbass. Yeah. But the guy who will like take her with a bit of passion, with a bit of lust, and throw her around a little bit, manhandle her a bit, you know, spank her properly, like pull her hair properly, maybe choke her erotically if you know how to do it correctly. It's a correct way to do that.
Yeah.
These little things like tie her hands up, pin her hands behind her back, pin her hands down. All of this stuff is ultimately showing that you are stronger and more capable than it.
Yeah.
It's actually, if you want to get even deeper than that, it's showing the capacity for violence.
Or you're
not being violent to her. That's very important. But you are showing you have the capacity for violence, which is what we just said before. Why are women still attracted to Chris Brown? Because he's a violent guy. They don't want him to be violent to him.
But
to her,
if you think about that,
they're attracted to the fact that he is capable of it.
Yeah, and if you think about that just in terms of evolution, that makes sense, because who was always the best mate to have? It's the one who could inflict violence for the survival of the tribe. It makes sense.
Go even further. It's war brides theory.
Oh, what's that? Tell me about that.
Well, okay. Tribal society.
Yeah.
This tribe comes in and fucks up this tribe.
Yeah.
What happens?
They kill the men, take the women.
The men and the sons get killed.
Yeah.
The women, they take the women and they, for want of a better phrase, sexually assault them, basically. And then they have kids with them.
Yeah. So it's the violent men's genes who got passed down.
Yeah. And more specifically, it's the women who were able to deal with that and like didn't off themselves.
Right.
There somewhere, and it's not a nice thing to say. It's not a flattering thing to say. It's not, but it's just a truth. Like, deep in women's psychology, there is the capacity to like fall in love with a man who has killed her husband, and like, and possibly even killed his kids as well.
Yeah,
there is that capacity is there, and that's the war brides theory, basically.
Yeah,
which also doubles down on the reason why women are attracted to men who are capable of violence,
right?
Because it's literally been bred into them, and it's not our grandparents, not even our great grandparents, but we're talking like through millennia.
Yeah,
you know, humans are very violent people. We've been we live in a very peaceful time.
Yes.
Prior to that, we were constantly warring with each other over, you know, and on a micro level as much as like a country level.
100%. I guess, what do you think is the solution, right? Because, I mean, not that there's one solution, but I think men now are just becoming so just fucking demasculinized by everything society is throwing at them. I guess, what do you think is like the solution to, these feminine men, these internet soy boys, all of these guys? Like, what do you think is the solution to these guys getting actually better?
Yeah, well, they have to recognize that there's a problem.
Yeah.
Because you're not, and that comes through guys like you, guys like me, guys like Rollo, guys like Michael, guys like the Tates.
Yeah.
Like, the more exposure people get to, because like most people aren't like born and raised, shall we say, red pilled on this stuff. They have to come to this understanding because every aspect of society is telling the opposite.
Yeah,
it's telling you the convenient lie. Like, the comfortable, like they paint this really comfortable, nice, neat, like rainbow, sunshine and rainbows reality, which is false, which doesn't get you any results.
Yeah.
So and people can live in that reality for a very, very long time. People can live in that reality for their entire life without questioning it, despite the fact that they're not getting the results that they're promised. And so it takes like a little exposure here, a little exposure there. It takes them being exposed or seeing content like this to like wake them up to the possibility that there is a different way of viewing the world, a different way of viewing reality, of understanding human nature and sexual dynamics. And then ultimately it's down to them. They have to accept the fact that they've been lied to, which is hard.
Yeah.
And it's easier for them to do it at a younger age. It's much easier to do it at a younger age. My buddy used to have this analogy, like the red pill is like a suppository. And the younger you are, the smaller it is. Right? But if you're an old guy, the suppository is like this big.
Yeah.
It's because you've spent your whole life living this lie. Right. And then you're 60 and you get red pilled because you got divorced, raped. and you're like, motherfucker, like it's world shattering.
Yeah.
To learn about, you know, male female nature at an older age than it is at a younger age.
Yeah. And that's why I think older guys struggle more with the red pill rage. That's something I've noticed.
Definitely. 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of hard to tell that really, because you never really know who's commenting. You know?
Well, the way I get that insight is because obviously, you know, with Michael's coaching, I used to do a lot of like his sales goal and stuff like that. So I actually get to talk to who is behind.
Good.
And
you're seeing the older guys with
dude, I've seen the worst, man. It's like, you know, guys find out the kid wasn't there, she took half their money. Like, I see the crazy shit.
And that, I mean,
like, at least
that is justifiable rage, in my opinion.
Yeah, but I do think it, you know, for a lot of guys who have been through it, it does color. Like, I do believe like that red pill rage, it can paint like this gloomy, nihilistic, pessimistic,
it's black pilled.
Yeah, it's not healthy. Like, there's definitely like a dose of it where it's not healthy, and I think a lot of guys, you know, unfortunately, when they watch a lot of Rollo's content or your content or Justin or any of these guys, like, they feel like they're almost like, you know, hey, I should just give up and not even try.
Yeah, that's not the message. The message is not to try and make you hate women.
Yeah,
that was never the message. The message is about making you understand women's true nature.
Yeah,
so you can accept them for what they actually are.
Right.
You know, it's not, the analogy I like to use is you wouldn't get mad at a lion for trying to eat you.
No.
It's a lion. You expect that, like, if you walk into a cage with a grizzly bear, you expect it to eat you.
Right.
If you didn't, you'd be a bit of an idiot. If you expect you could walk into a cage with a grizzly and not get eaten, you're a retard. Likewise, if you understand female nature, you shouldn't get angry at them being women and acting the way women act.
Yeah.
You should expect them to act like women and respond accordingly.
Right.
And adjust accordingly. You know, and then you can truly love women for who they actually are. And you stop giving them these unrealistic expectations.
Yeah.
That I think most men give them. That most nice guys absolutely give women.
Yes.
They have all these really totally unrealistic expectations of what they expect from women, especially when they're in the friend zone or they're one of those orbiters, right? They build up this sort of tally, this karmic debt in their mind that they think the woman owes them. And then when that doesn't eventuate, they flip the fuck out.
Right. And on the flip side, like, it's almost like this massive inequality, right? Do you know a guy named Psychax? He's a big YouTube channel. He has like 500,000 subs. You would really like his stuff. So he breaks down everything we're talking about but in terms of behavioral psychology and like actual economic theory. He like breaks down the economics of the sexual marketplace. He's a great guy. Mike, he was just on Mike's podcast recently and we both interviewed him. But something that also happens is, yes, like, those nice guys feel like they have that karmic debt, but also it inflates the egos of the women. So there's these women who are like, dude, it's crazy. I see like women who are like 5s and 6s who like think they need like guys making $1 million. He has like needs to have a 9-inch dick. He needs to, you know, he needs to make $5 million a year. And they like actually think they deserve that, but it's because they get so much of that attention, right? Because attention to women is what like sex is for men. They get that attention and they think they actually deserve more than they actually are. And that's another big thing.
And you know what? And they're ultimately the ones that pay for it.
Yeah.
Because they're the ones that will, like, they will never be, if they have that expectation and they truly believe that they deserve that.
And they do.
They will never get it.
Yeah.
And that's, and so they're going to be, so those women will forever live unfulfilled.
Yeah.
Because they're never going to, because they have that expectation, because they have an inflated ego or whatever. They're never going to find a guy who meets their standard.
Right.
Because the guy that does won't typically, maybe once in a million, but that guy is typically not settling for a woman of her standard.
100%. You want to hear something crazy about that, actually? With Sartain and I, when we're like, because we do so many like of these bikini comps, we do these events, obviously we're around a lot of people. Something like him and I independently picked up on, and we're debriefing and we came up with this, is that we've noticed that, like, just out of respect, the girls who are like, you know, more mid, right? Maybe like 5, 6, and 7s when you go out to a nightclub, those girls were always the most demanding. But when we talk to the prettiest girls, like I'm talking like the 9s and 10s, runway models, playmates, whoever it was, those girls were always the humblest. I swear to God, bro. It's like they always showed up on time. They always like flew themselves in. They even offered to pay for their own like hotels and stuff like that. Then you talk to like, you know, with all due respect, like the 6, and she's like, here are my rates. Fly me out. I'm like, are you out of your fucking mind?
Wow.
But like, it actually is a huge manifestation because they get that validation, because there's some internet soy boy who is telling them like, no, Stirling's a narcissist, and giving them all that validation.
You know what I think that is I think that let's say, let's go along with this, right?
Yeah.
That like mid woman has a bigger sense of entitlement, because I think she is actually getting like genuinely talked to, like interacted with on a personal, like face-to-face basis far more than the 9 or 10, because dudes are intimidated by the beauty.
You think so?
I think I'm just trying to figure out an explanation for it.
I
because,
definitely.
like, if you here's because I think there's a degree of resentment. At least I remember this back in the day. Like, because I would always, if I like, this is 10 years ago, 10, 12 years ago, when I would go out tonight to clubs and stuff, the super hot women were always really nice.
Yeah.
And the mid ones were the ones that would reject you really harshly.
Yeah.
And I think there's an element of mid women know they're mid, and they kind of resent guys who hit on them because they think the guys think that they're easy to get laid, like they're easy to fuck,
right?
And they're trying to not be easy to fuck.
Yeah. Dan Bilzerian and I talked about this the other day. He actually kind of had a theory on it. So, you know, back to something we talk about is like, we always like to say like what sex is for men is attention for women, right? And oftentimes, like, if we're being real, a lot of guys, you know, when they're talking to the 6 or the 5 or the 6, they're a lot more upfront. You know, they're not going to put in that much effort to get it. But why I think a lot of that ego comes about is that once a woman knows, like, at least from our experience, tell me if you agree with this. Once a woman knows she can have you, that's almost enough for her than actually having sex with you. So something Dan Bilzerian talks about a lot is like, he would have a girl message him, like sending him nudes saying she wants to fuck, and then he would say, yeah, come over. And then she would make it play games, and she wouldn't, because she got the validation that Dan Bilzerian wanted to fuck her.
Right.
She doesn't do that anymore.
Game over. Yeah.
Game over.
She won.
She did win.
Yeah.
And in this situation, she won. And even that's happening to a guy like Dan.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think that's what happens a lot. And
that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense to me.
I think that happens a lot. I don't know. I definitely think, at least from my experience, like, I think the 9s and 10s, they definitely get approached. Like, they definitely get a lot of stimulus.
Maybe based upon that example you just said, maybe the much more attractive women are getting approached by guys who are not being as overt, like you just said.
Yeah.
And so, or maybe those women are even a little bit delusional in that, oh, he just wants to be a friend of mine.
Yeah.
Right. So whereas the mid woman, every guy she interacts with is just trying to fuck her.
Yeah.
I mean, or is overt about the fact that he's just trying to fuck her.
Yeah.
Right. It's the case with both of them. It's just one is getting it like more directly, and the other one is getting it very subtly without her even realizing it.
It's an interesting phenomenon, though.
How I totally get what you're saying though. Like I've seen that. Like the most attractive women are usually the nicest. They're so friendly.
Yeah.
Totally friendly.
Yeah.
It's like I don't get hate online from like beautiful women. I get hate online from like the mids. It's as simple as that. My fiance fucking loves it, by the way. She goes through like my Twitter comments and stuff, and she just laughs her ass off. Like, yeah, she sends screenshots and shit to me, like, who's this ugly bitch?
Do you get a lot of women hate? I feel like you guys get more male
on Twitter. I get women hate.
Really?
Actually, I'd say on my YouTube, it's all dudes.
Yeah,
my YouTube's all dudes. Instagram, I get women chiming in, and depends on what I tweeted something the other day, which has exploded on my Twitter. I did not. There's all women chiming in, and I didn't even think women followed my Twitter accounts. I don't know how they're seeing this tweet. Yeah, but all I said was obviously a bit tongue in cheek. But all I said was, women need men more than men need women, which I think is still factually correct. Because and the funny thing, I'll go on this tangent for a second. Yeah, the funny thing is, all of the women that are hating on me and chiming in, in the comment section or retweeting it and arguing with me, all of their arguments basically boil down to, if women weren't here, you wouldn't be alive, right? Or then why are you guys so desperate to fuck us? Something like that. Mm-hmm. Basically, their argument boils down to we have a vagina.
Yeah.
Right. So they're basically they themselves are making the argument that they're only good for one thing, the vagina.
Right.
The purpose of giving birth, having kids, so sex. Okay, cool. That's your argument. So what are men? What utility do men serve for women? A whole bunch of shit.
Yeah.
Building society, keeping you safe, providing resources, feeding you, clothing you, giving you shit. The list goes on and on and on. So they just made my point for me by saying that women are really you wouldn't be here without us because we give birth to you.
I'm sure that went very well.
Okay, well, what else? Can you name anything else? No, you can't. So basically, you just proved my point.
Right.
Yeah. But that in particular is riling up a lot of women.
100%. That's so funny. Yeah. I don't know. I've always noticed that the attractive women don't have any problem with anything that we do.
Yeah. Yeah. They love it.
They love it.
They fucking love it.
Yeah.
What are you talking about? They get it.
They're honest.
They're super honest about it.
Yeah. He's with a lot of women. I find that attractive. They're honest. Yeah. Dude, you should have been on the last Access Vegas. We had this one girl. She was sitting in the spot you're in, and she was like, I had never heard this level of honesty on the podcast. I'll send you a clip. She was like, no, I like them. I like narcissists.
Yeah.
I like them to have an ego.
Yeah.
You remember this, Kyle? Yeah. She was honest. I had never seen that level of honesty on a podcast before.
Right.
But she was honest about it, man. But yeah, dude, I don't have anything. Oh, I did want to cover just one last thing, man, because I know, you're helping guys, quit porn and stuff like that. So go into the difference between, because I think it's a big distinction people need to make. There's a difference between semen retention, which is gay, and then nofap and no PMO.
Got it.
Go into that.
Yeah. Okay. So, my understanding is semen retention is you don't ejaculate even with your girlfriend.
Yeah.
You don't ejaculate at all.
Yeah.
Right? And then nofap is you're not jerking off, and you're not and then you're also not jerking off to porn very specifically. And then when you're with a woman, you are actually having sex and you are allowing yourself to ejaculate.
Yes.
As nature intended. Yeah. I mean, I don't really personally, in my personal experience, I think your body kind of knows when you're jerking it.
You think so?
Yeah, because I've never you can jerk it and you can get that kind of like a lethargic feeling and like an unmotivated feeling. But when you finish with a woman, you just feel relaxed.
Yeah.
I think your body knows.
Yeah, actually,
when you're actually with a woman.
I think Huberman talks about this actually. So
it must be a pheromone thing.
It is a pheromone thing, but at least from what the literature says. So both of them have dopamine, right? Dopamine's the big one. You're gonna have dopamine with sex or masturbation, but the physical touch involves vasopressin and oxytocin, which will give you that more empowered feeling.
Makes sense.
Versus when you're just jerking it, there is no touch, there is no intimacy with the woman, so you're just eroding your dopamine receptors.
That makes perfect sense.
And that's what happens.
Perfect sense.
Yeah.
So that's why semen retention is gay.
Yeah, 100%. It's the gayest thing I've ever heard.
It's gayer than gay sex.
Agreed. What do you think are the biggest tips you give guys to quit? Do you recommend they go cold turkey? Do you recommend they don't masturbate at all? What is your prescription for that?
I mean, I think because if it's a habitual thing, you have a problem with it. I think you should identify your trigger. And it's the same with a lot of addictions, right? What's the triggering thing that causes you to do it in the first place?
Yeah.
Is it because are you sitting there on your phone at night and you can't get to sleep? So you're just staring at your thing and you do that to try and go to sleep. Is it because you scroll through Instagram and you follow a bunch of girls who post scantily clad pictures and that gets you aroused and then you go fap?
Yeah.
What is the triggering thing that causes you to do the habit in the first place? So try to eliminate that triggering influence.
Yeah.
First of all. Second, really easy thing you can do is put on your laptop and on your phone, you can install a parental lock and then not look at the keyboard as you type up a random password.
Yeah.
That's incredibly easy. You'll never crack it. And then you can't access it.
Yeah.
That's super easy. That's practical as hell.
And give your buddy your laptop charger. That's a great idea.
Right. It's great.
Yeah.
Steal it by all means.
Yeah.
And then I think, and then after those two kind of really practical tips, I think a third one would be cutting it. And you don't. I mean, you can, if you can go to cold turkey, go cold turkey. But I think there's like porn addiction or habitual porn use is a similar problem to like habitual phone use, like endlessly scrolling TikTok. It's also a similar problem to, mindlessly consuming alcohol or mindlessly consuming sugar. Like these all have a very similar like dopamine, quick, instant dopamine response, right? Without any, delayed gratification involved. So I think weaning off all these other things simultaneously, although it's hard, will help your brain to recover.
Yeah.
And help. And I think that's a far better long-term strategy for you.
Yeah.
Than just saying, I'm going to try and quit porn, blah, blah, blah.
Huberman, I know we're talking a lot about him a lot on this podcast. He talks about like having, the least amount of dopamine spikes possible throughout the day so that you lower your baseline level.
Yeah, completely. And then things become more rewarding.
Yeah.
Then you become more motivated. Then something as simple as like checking your emails becomes exciting.
Yeah.
Because you're like rewarding. It's a reward. It's a goal. It's like, it makes all of life actually a lot more exciting.
100%. I also think it would make, at least from my perspective, when I was struggling like with the porn stuff, like I almost like dreaded going out to these social situations. Like it was crazy. Like I was dreading going to a bikini competition. What the fuck? Like I'm with Sartain and with Justin, all these guys. Like these are like for a guy my age, this is 10 out of 10 experience. Whatever you would want. I would dread going to these things. Like it's like I would dread talking to the girls. I would like it would be like a nuisance. But when I got off of it, like I was excited to go. Even if I didn't get laid, I was just excited to talk to a hot girl, flirt with a hot girl, and everything like that. So I agree with you. It's like when you reset that dopamine, it brings more pleasure out of like things that actually require effort.
Yeah, completely.
Yeah,
totally agree,
dude. That's everything for me, man. You got anything else you want to cover?
No, it's all good. If you guys want to find out, find all my free resources, go to YouTube, go to Stirling Cooper on YouTube, or stirlingcooper.com. My name is spelled Stirling, just so in case you don't spell it wrong. Yeah, you can find a bunch of free stuff there. And if you like some of that stuff, then I would recommend diving into some of my paid material as well.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Dude, thanks, man. That's great.
Thank you.
Dude, we went for a while. Hell